Welcome back, everyone, to the Book and Life podcast. I am going to be on today with the Instagram genius of books and promotion, and I just adore her videos. In fact, I think hubby has gotten sick and tired of me disappearing for 20 minutes or more watching all the feed that I get off of her. And yeah, so I am more than delighted to announce Kay, the book lover. But before we do that, I just want to remind everybody to check out Marianne Curley's The Guardian fourth book. Make sure it's on your shopping list because number 5 is very close to publication and we need to know what's going on before we get there. And Ethan's very interesting this time. So, welcome to the podcast, Kay.
Thanks for having me. I'm honored.
It's fun. I was saying to my friend, because my friend, she loves your feeds, and I told her you were coming on, and she was like, "Oh my God, how did you get her?" And I went, "I asked."
Bookstrgammers are people too.
Yeah,
And,
yeah.
I don't know, we want to have fun just like everybody else does.
And I think it's like, I mean, I get this particularly as an author, like when people realize you're an author or you're an influencer or you're part of like that sort of world, it's almost like they hold their breath, they take a step back, and then they're like, you become almost like this famous person that they just don't know how to talk to. And
Yeah.
I find that so weird. I find it so, so, so weird.
It is so weird too because I don't look at myself or like think of myself as like I guess a big deal as far as like Instagram goes. Like I'm just there to chat books and have fun and so I guess I don't think of myself as an influence. So
Well, you certainly are. I mean, it was so funny because I said to Sarah Humphreys last night before we recorded, I was like, I said, I wish one day, like, you've made it when somebody does something on Instagram with your book, right? And it's like such an author thing that we have where we're like, we check the feed to see if anyone's like done something stupid with one of our books or funny with one of our books.
Yeah.
And she's like, she found one the other day and she's like, it was like one of her first ever releases and she loved it. I was like, sitting in the corner stiffly, I was like, no one actually has done that with mine. So like I felt like I was not part of the club. But no, it's fun. It makes I always think it makes life interesting when you can scroll down and you can see other people that love the books that you love
Mhm.
doing something fun with it. And I just love some of your videos. Like I'll watch them and then I'll be giggling in the car and my hubby will be like, "What are you watching?" "Nothing." "What were you saying?" So yeah, I'm terrible for that.
My husband will watch my videos, and he actually loves that I started a Bookstagram because, bless that man, he is so supportive of my book reading. But also, I think for a long time he was so tired of me like gushing over my book boyfriends and like all the characters I
Of
love and everything.
course.
And now he's like, I'm so glad you have other people you can talk to that have read the books instead of me just going, uh huh, uh huh, uh
Yep.
huh. I mean,
And here's the thing, like what people don't realize is I'm a huge reader as well.
yeah,
I have like I have bookcases all over my house.
yeah,
So my husband is like every time we move, there's almost this great big sigh that comes out of him and he's like, "Oh, all those boxes are gonna fill the spare room again, aren't they?"
yep.
Because I never realized how many books I had till I moved house last time, and it was literally half of my spare room from the floor to the ceiling
Oh,
was
yeah.
just books. And then he was like, we started moving my bookcases, and then my bookcases fell apart.
Oh,
So
no.
my hubby was like, bookcases for Christmas.
Yep,
They're
yep.
so easy to buy for
So
bookcases.
we just moved states last year for my
Yeah.
husband's career, and I've always wanted like gorgeous bookshelves. Like it's been a dream of mine. But I had hand-me-down bookshelves, and I would
Yep.
find them free on Facebook Marketplace and paint them and rehab them. I loved them. But when we moved into this house, he bought me. You can see them back
Yeah,
behind
there was a stunning, and the listeners, if you can't see this, they are the most beautiful white shelves you've ever seen. And
me.
then she's got all of them decorated. I envy that because when I look at my shelves, I always feel bad because mine's are like, I have them upright if I read them, and then I have them on their sides if I haven't read them, because that's the only way I can keep track.
I
And
have
my hubby's like
different
the
shelves
same.
for TBR.
Yeah, yeah. You have to. Like, I mean, I have like a TBR pile beside my bed that my lamp sits on, and it's like taller than my actual bedside table now. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I don't know if I can reach the lamp anymore.
Or the top of my
Well,
TBR pile. Can you reach that for me, husband? Because
I can't reach that book. Yeah, I say that to him all the time. Or like I go into this our local town has the most gorgeous little place called the Book Nook, right, in Stirling, and it has just wall to walls of nothing but bookcases with everything you can imagine. And it's all like most of them are recycled books, so you're not buying them new. You're getting like people who have
hand.
gone into the shop, they just want rid of the books, and I am terrible for coming back with like two or three
I was gonna
because
say,
it's like the
you can
best prices.
2 or 3.
I'm really good. I will say to myself, no more than three, because if I come in with more than three, my husband will flip out. Because he's like sick and tired of building bookshelves. And it was so funny because on my wedding night, I was sitting in my hotel room reading, and my best friend stopped by and she was like, "Why are you not in bed?" I'm reading. And she's like, "What are you reading?" And the worst thing was
Why she's stopping by on her wedding night?
I know, she was like, she was stopping by to see how I was because she like totally thought I would do like Runaway Bride style or something. And I'm like, no, but thank you. This is weird. And then she's like, has a full 25-minute conversation with me about what I'm reading. And I'm like, college books that are boring? Like, I was reading Othello, which is, if anyone knows, is a domestic murder, right? Classic. It's a travel novel, set in America, but like before America was America. So it was like the beginning of all the plantations and stuff. And it's brutal. It's a brutal book. And I'm thinking to myself, why am I sitting reading a brutal book on the night before my wedding? I should be reading a novel that's like got wedding stuff in it. So yeah, my best friend, she's like totally. She comes in, she rummages through my bookshelves all the time. She'll be like, I fancy something to read. I'll go see Crystal this week or something. Oh, all right, okay.
Yeah. I've also had babysitters that have been like watching my kids and they'll be like,
Yeah.
do you mind if I look at your books? I'm like, no. Sorry, I have a kitty that is, you might hear him in the background. He is something else, but just to warn you, there is a little kitty that'll meow
Oh,
at
I
me.
have two, and I'm lucky right now they're out cold. Because last night I had like one red in my head the entire podcast, and he just kept saying, Mama. And
Yeah.
I'm like, I had to mute it at one point and go, shh. You know, like, get shot of him. Just like, my hubby actually ended up coming into the room, picking him up, and walking out the room with him. Because it was like the only way I was going to get peace was if he actually physically removed him from the. I was like, this is ridiculous. But yeah, like, totally, I am fine with dogs. I've had kids run into podcasts. So,
We have
you know,
lives. We have lives.
yeah, we have lives, and that's the whole point of this. Like, this is why I don't. Everyone goes, "Oh my God, do you spend hours editing this?" And I go, "No, because I wanted to reflect our real lives. Like, this
Mhm.
is what would happen if we were sitting down for a cup of coffee."
Yeah, you would see
And
my
then they go,
kids run
"Yep,
through, my cats run through. This one's the biggest attention problem.
oh yeah." And there's nothing worse than when you're reading and you've got like a furry face
If you
sticking
go
up,
headbutt the book and you drop it, this
or
one
they bounce it right into your face. Is the other one?
you hear
Aw,
it
that is the most
headbutting.
adorable ginger I've ever
Or my
seen.
Kindle.
Yeah. Or do you know, like, my one actually ran away with one of my books?
Really?
I was sitting, and I was mortified he did it. I was sitting in bed, and I don't know why, but I turned to Ian and I was asking him a question, and he literally just closed his mouth round the book and just picked it up and took off with it.
The worst thing my puppy did, well, he's not a puppy anymore, he's 4, but when he
Yeah.
was a puppy, he ate one of my signed Cheryl and Kenyon books.
Oh no!
Yeah,
That's devastating.
yeah.
That is,
I,
I
uh,
know that one
I
personally.
lost
Yeah.
my temper. That's at that point I was like, no books on the bottom shelf.
Yes. Oh, I've
Yeah,
got a niece and I'm dreading her coming to visit because my bookcases look like climbing frames. And I swear she's gonna, and she loves to reorganize everything. Like she does this at her granny's house. She takes all the books down and then she like reorganizes them. And it got that bad that like her gran had to move her books into the dining room and had to hide them almost so that she can't find them because I got her like leather bound, gold embossed copies of Agatha Christie's novels.
Yeah.
So like really old classic ones. So she's so scared they're gonna get ruined, so she hides them. Yeah. But no, I know the pain about the Shirley Kennan ones because I have a few of hers signed too. I would have died to have lost one. But to be fair, my kitty has nearly destroyed my Acheron one, so I'm gonna have to like get a replacement at some point.
So I did. I used to be a nail tech, and I had a client that borrowed my Acheron and two others, and she never
Yeah.
returned them. So they're my ones that are missing out of my set. I've got to replace them now. But
Yeah, it's awful. Like, I mean, I've had family friends, or sorry, my husband's friend's family that borrowed books, and then they fell out with us, and I never got them back. And I'm like, I
it's
just wanted to be friends with them for 2 more days to get the books back. I'm like, you could fall out once I get the books back.
yeah.
But yeah, I had
I don't really lend out books after that happened. Like
no, you can't, you can't. Like, my best friend gets away with it because I know it'll come back eventually.
yeah.
And it usually comes back in a better condition than I lent it to her in.
Or maybe she replaces it if she knows she damaged it. Because that's like, if I borrow a
Yeah,
book from a friend and let's say, because I'll be honest, it's like my guilty trait, but like I'm a spine cracker on mass paperback.
so am I. Yep,
I feel like I can't read them unless I really get that book open. So it's only on my mass
exactly.
paperbacks. But if I borrow a book from someone and I accidentally like bend a page or bend the cover, I am the person that replaces the book because I'm like, they didn't
So
give
am
it to me
I.
that way.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, it was like, luckily enough, I'm the one with the collection, so I don't feel too bad if I bend my spines and break them. But my husband, like, he says sometimes it's like sitting next to like a skeleton, because all he'll hear is crack,
Yeah.
crack at
My
the
husband's like,
spine. Yep, yep,
book if it gets opened completely and he hears it. Like, yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and I mean I'm doing that like I've gotten a hardback book from a publisher because I'm reading the Fiona Cummings new novel and it is so good. It is such a thriller and it's actually out on the 19th of this month. So this podcast doesn't come out until May, but it's funny for me because I'm just devouring it and I usually struggle a little bit in books, but I am devouring hers. My husband's like 2 o'clock in the morning, and all I can hear is crack, crack, and it's driving him mad. He's like, because especially when I'm sitting there telling him, this officer's kind of twisted, and he's just like creeping into his dreams and stuff. And he's like, seriously, you need to stop. But he did buy me, I don't know if you use this if you read at night, but I get like a neck torch. They are fantastic things because then you don't have to have the lamp on for your husband, and it's just like it sits here and it shines right into the book, and you can have it all different colors, and you can have it all like different tones, so it's not like too bright and stuff. It is like the best, I think, £8 he ever spent. I
So
was just like, wow.
at night I read. I actually read a lot on my Kindle.
Yeah,
I have arthritis in my hands, and sometimes those,
same.
900-page books are really hard to hold for a long time. So
Yeah,
I am guilty of owning multiple copies of books, or I'll use like I don't know if you have the Libby app out there where you're at, but like here in the States and in Canada, I know that you can use the Libby app.
yeah.
Um, so I use that a lot. Like if I like let's say Crescent City, for example, like it's a hefty book.
It is a hefty, hefty book, yeah.
I think I got 75 pages in, and I was like, my hands, because I have arthritis through like my thumb and my index finger the most. And so I
Yeah.
was like, I can't hold this book anymore. And so I totally like downloaded it on my Kindle and read
You
through my
have
Kindle.
to sometimes, yeah. Like for me, I have like a wedge pillow, which is
I,
so helpful. And I just like I'll lie with my knees up in it so like it's like I'll lean it against something and then that way I'm not physically having to hold it. And then I might just set my elbow on it, just like if it's like being difficult. But that's why you push the spines, like you forcefully open them because then they don't like flap over and stuff.
yeah.
But I mean, yeah, I've got arthritis like my entire body, like whole body.
My
So,
suggestion to any reader that reads in bed, is get an adjustable bed. So
I
I
want one. I do. And my husband's like, no. And I'm like,
It is a game changer. So we just bought one like a few, I don't know, maybe 6 months ago. My
right.
whole life, I've had a standard bed. Well, we've had a sleep number bed, which adjusts as far as like the firmness goes.
Yeah.
But now our best bed actually like sits up and lays down and our feet come up. And both my husband and I are like, why didn't we get this before? Like, this is amazing. But then I set it up even higher to read and like
Yeah.
lean. I can recline in the bed and then he is at his position or whatever because ours is dual. So we can each be at a different level. And he's like,
Yeah.
why did we wait 15 years for this? This is amazing.
I know, like, and that's what I was saying to Ian. I'm like, Ian, with adjustable beds. And he's like, no, because then you have like a gap in the middle. He's like worried that the gap in the middle will make him fall in or something.
So
And I'm
ours
like,
is like
mm,
the top is split. So there
yeah,
is a gap at the very top of the bed. But we
yeah.
haven't had an issue with it, other than like when we're snuggling, one of our shoulders sometimes winds up in the crack, and then I'll be like, "Wait, we gotta adjust."
That's what he's like. That was his worry. And because we're snugglers, we're really bad for like, we watch Netflix. Like, I'll put something on like Riverdale or something that isn't too girly for him because I tried him with Bridgerton and I've learned to regret that one. But if we're watching like NCIS or something like that in the bed, this is why I said to him, I'm like, let's save up our money, get a proper TV bed, but also make sure it can like bend and stuff.
But you
And
will
he was just like, no.
have it adjust at the top.
Yeah, like adjust to the top. And and I said to him, I'm like, it'll be fine, but I've still got a standard bed right now. So
I love it.
I've
I love
lost
it.
that argument.
You
But I
can you,
will win it.
you can send them to me at my DMs, and I can tell my husband to reply back to him like,
Yeah,
"Yeah,
exact.
a good
Yeah,
suggestion."
and I mean, at least I would get rid of the body pillow because, like, I don't know if you've tried this, but for like aspirations is one of the best things that was ever invented
Hmm.
because you can like lie your joints on it and it's like floating in a cloud. And it was like the first time I tried it, I was like, oh my God, this is so good.
I'm such
So
a
yeah,
hardcore stomach sleeper, though, that
yeah,
like I
it's good for that too, by the way. Yeah, it's really good because like I do that as well. Like there's times where I'll just lie flat on my stomach and it's just like floating on a balloon almost. It's like you're just floating on a cloud. And I
Mhm.
have found it's like so much better. It's like the only problem with it is like if your husband rolls over in the middle of the night, they always end up bashing into it.
Mhm.
That's like my hubby's big argument with it. He's like, I love that you're not in pain, but I hate like how much space you now take up in the bed. Like,
You need a
and I'm
king
like,
size
well,
bed
you can't win here, hubby. Like, either you're complaining that I'm smacking you in my sleep because I'm rolling over, or you're complaining I'm taking up too much room.
Yeah, there's no winning. Sharing
There's
a
no
bed is
win.
always awkward. Like there's always something.
Yeah, he's gonna end up with his own bed at this rate. I'm just gonna be like, next room.
My
This is
husband
mine.
can't go to his own bed because I'd be cold the entire night, and I'd be like, I need you to go
Same.
back. I'm freezing.
I know because like I never realized like because we've been together like 14 years now,
Mine
and y- and it's great because like I he is like a literally a walking boiler, right? The cats love him because he's warm. They like to have a tent, so he makes like a little tent with his legs, and then they
Mm-hmm.
sleep in the tent under his legs, like for hours at a time. And then the other one will sleep like between his feet with his head on his foot, right?
Yeah.
Cutest thing ever. And but he warms the bed, so I like to like get him to go to bed 15 minutes before me. And then there's no need for like hot water bottles or anything because it's nice and warm.
Yeah.
But he also has this weird thing of no electric blankets. So even if he wasn't there, I'd have to put an electric blanket on there because it would be the only way to get the bed warm enough
Yeah.
to feel like he's there. So yeah, I'm terrible for that too.
Same. Same.
So let's talk books because that's where that's what we love.
Okay.
So what is the book that you've read recently that has stuck with you the most? Like that has invaded all other books that you've been trying to read?
Um, it depends on my mood because I'm a
Oh.
very like hardcore mood reader. As far as like that fantasy paranormal stuff, um, I would say the Zodiac Academy has like absorbed into my soul. Like I'm obsessed
Wow.
with it. I binged, let's see, I binged like the first six, because the seventh book wasn't out yet. I
Yeah.
binged the first six, I think within 2 weeks. Like, and they're hefty books. They're like,
They are hefty books, yeah.
they're chunky books. So those ones, as far as like kind of contemporary ones that own my soul, I would say like the Ravenhood series by Kate Stewart.
I was
I
thinking that, yeah.
Yeah, I still am not over Exodus. Like, if I start to talk about it too much, I will start to cry. Like, I don't
It's
know.
hard though, like, because people just don't get the emotional connection that you can sometimes get with these things, and it is so hard to like pull out of it. So I totally get you on that. Like for me at the moment, I've been reading crime because I have crime authors coming on now, and it's like I'm just sucked into her world of like all these people are lying and you're trying to figure it out, and it's like ah.
I never sleep if I read a lot of crime novels.
Funnily enough, like I'm fine. I can sleep fine, but I'm like almost like though I'm like mulling it over in my head, saying like, wait, I know like more than one of these people are lying, but I can't figure out who. So like, because like Fiona's Cummings book is completely taken over. I was reading Shiver just before the second Shivers trilogy novel, just before I started reading hers.
Mhm.
That one's kind of stuck with me. But I would say like I don't know if you read Stolen by Kelly Armstrong.
Um, no.
Eh, wow. Oh my God, Shifters. Love
Is
it.
that the
The
one where
whole work.
is that the one where the Bitten TV show is based off of?
Yeah, but it's nothing like the show.
Well, books are always better than shows.
Yeah, of course, they're always better. But it like I stupidly watched the show first.
I watched the show first, and I think I have the book. I just haven't read it yet. But I love
Oh,
Shifter, so it's amazing that I haven't picked it up yet.
yeah, but it was like it was awesome. I started reading it, thought I was gonna hate it because it was like the show, but my friends were on at me like, no, 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 read it, trust us, trust us. And I read it, and I was just like, oh, I love this. Picked up Stolen, and then it was just like I had to stop because I had to read the crime book for the podcast, and I
Yeah.
was like, but it has like lingered with me because I'm like, how is she gonna get out of this situation this time? Like, it has got me on the edge a little bit. And I love her shifters too. Like, I love the fact they have to get butt ass naked every time that they want to shift. Like, I just love that part. I'm just like, when they're like, right, I have to go find somewhere to strip.
Yeah.
And you're just thinking to yourself, like, that's gotta be awkward. Like, to go and find
I'm
a
just going to
space.
see my butt today. Yeah.
Yeah, like, oh, Jeremy's like my father figure, so I'm just gonna go get naked in front of him. It's like a couple of times I literally like looked at the book funny as if to say, did I read that right? Like,
Yeah.
but it is funny.
I'll move that up on my TBR as to be read for sure.
Cause like I thought like cause some people said she was like a Shirley Cannon, but like calmer. I would say she's as good as Shirley. Like
Okay.
it's the same level of concentration and detail that she puts in.
Yeah.
They are biggish books. I wouldn't say they're massive books, but they're good sized.
They're big.
Like,
So
yeah.
Sherilyn Kenyon and J.R. Ward are, I would say, the two biggest authors that really made me love the paranormal romance genre.
I'm with you on that.
I have
So with you
read
on that.
them. I mean, I've been big fans of them since probably 2007. I know Ward was
Wow.
at least 2007 when I
Yeah.
started reading her. Because I fell in love with Rage from Black Dagger Brotherhood. If you've been
Yeah.
on my Instagram, you know this is a thing for me. I've always been a
Yep.
big Rage fan. But I love him so much because there's so much of his personality that is so much like my husband's. Um,
Ah.
like the way Rage, his humor, and the way Rage talks about muscle cars. My husband was a car guy too, and
Yeah.
just like it's very much like Rage's humor is very similar to my husband's, and the way my husband is with the kids and stuff like that. I've loved Ward and Sherilyn Kenyon for a long time. They've been big. I've been big
So
fans of.
hardest question ever. Which is your favorite Shirley Kennan guy?
Ooh, for a long time I would have said Kyrian. Um,
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
he was like that first one that I really fell for, but I think it's because, that's book one, that's world building, that's where it starts.
Hmm.
I really fell for Vane Cadillacus and Fang Cadillacus.
Oh,
I'm
yes.
as much as I love my vampires in books, I actually might like shifters more. Um,
Yes. I think people like don't actually realize that, but when you start off, you're all like, "Oh, vampires, yay!" And then you realize, "Oh, wait, shifters are really cool because they do all this other stuff that like vampires can't do," and
yeah,
you just sort of get like totally hooked into that. But for me, I fell in love with Archeron just because of his story, like everything he went through, and the fact he was like still this really nice person. Okay, he had his moments, but he was like still this really nice guy and like deep down. So that was me. I just I miss him if he's not in a book, like in
I am
one of her
also a
books.
sucker for Dove Peltier.
I think you couldn't not be with him though.
Yeah,
Like
like
it's kind of
I've read No Mercy.
yeah.
Probably No Mercy might be the book that I've read the most from that series, actually. It's a tie-up probably between Night Pleasures, which is Kirian's book, and then No
Yes.
Mercy. And then also I kind of I like the misunderstood, but I don't really fall for like the dark tortured soul misunderstood. It's like
Yeah.
that. Like I love Valerius. I
Yeah.
really like that like mask that they put on for people, but then the people
Yep.
that really know them see the real sides of them. So I
I
love
wonder if like they all think, "Oh my God, what are they doing?" Like, because we know who they really are. Like, "Oh my God, would you just be you?" Like, I wonder if that ever actually goes through their minds at some point.
I don't know. I see, and I liked Styx versus Ashram. So
Styx
it's
was good.
I
Styx,
like
I must admit, was good. And of
it
course,
breaks
if
your
you do not know,
soul. Those
oh,
two books,
he is.
Ashram and Styx, like they're up there for books that made me cry way too hard.
Yeah, and she has a really good way of like just tearing your heart out. Like I think she's like got just a superpower of I'm going to make you cry today. And there's like
I,
nothing you can do about it.
if I give a book a 5 star, I mean, I've talked about this on my Instagram and stuff. I don't leave
Yeah.
negative reviews because what might not be for me could be someone else's favorite book, and I want to
Yeah, of
respect that for other
course.
people.
Yeah.
But for me, like a 5 star read is when I literally go through a yo-yo of emotions, and my husband has no idea what personality he's dealing with at that point. Like, are we crying? Are we
Mine's
happy?
is the same. That is so weird because like he'll say, "What are you reading?" And then he sort of almost like prepares himself. Like if I go and I just silently watch wrestling, he knows that this like book has really gotten to me. And he just doesn't talk to me. He waits till like I've watched my wrestling and I'm back to me and then he'll like say, "Okay, what was it in the book that scared you?" And for fans that don't know, today Shirley Cannon's book, The Shadow Fallen, and it's the sixth book in the Dream Hunter series, just came out.
Yeah.
So that's kind of cool. She'll enjoy the fact that I've advertised it slightly late, but it got advertised. I think that counts.
Yeah.
Um,
I've had some people message me that they started reading Ward, like just this year. They started reading Ward
yeah,
because of my love for these vampires, and I
you
think
did
it's
encourage me to pick up hers as well. I will openly admit that. Like I was just a Shirley Cannon, Christine Freeham girl.
yeah,
I thought I would never pick up J.R. Ward, and then I
it's
was
a different
like,
world for sure. It's a
yeah,
different.
I
Uh,
needed a different world though. I
yeah,
like,
I like that these older books, even though there's still new
yeah,
ones coming out, because these are long series, like you're talking 20 book series.
yeah,
Um,
and those are
I
the best series. FYI, the
I
20
think
book
such I
series.
love long series because if I can stay in a world that I'm loving, I so my husband laughs because there's sometimes I like just finish a book. Like I just read BK Borison's In the Weeds. I got an art copy of that, and I loved Love Light Farms. Like In the Weeds and Love Light Farms, they are the sweetest, cutest contemporary romance, and they're just like these really feel good books, and I
Yeah,
love them. And then I cry when it's over.
because
It's
you don't
not
want to leave the world.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's what it It's like I don't want it to be over. I just want to keep like loving those characters and loving their stories. So yes, if I can get a 20 plus book series, I'm in it. I am in it for the long haul. I love long.
It's so funny you say that because when I started the Marie's World series, I sat down with the publisher like that I'm gonna re-sign with, and I was like, it's a 32 book series. And they looked at me and they went, how long? Like, you want to do how many? I'm like, it's 32. I can't do it any shorter. The books are quite big. I said, trust me on this. And we got to book 5, and unfortunately, our publisher went, paused us for a number of years. But it is that case, like, where people have read the twins and they want to know more about each of the twins. And because the sisters all have, like, their own lives and they have their own worlds and they have their own love triangles and their own situations, like, I've had people say, like, if it wasn't for the diary entries, I would have no idea what's going on because there's so many characters coming and going. And they love it because that's how we can make it run for so long, is because there's all these different characters who have different stories they want to tell, so they have their own books, and we just literally built a world by everybody having a chance to tell their story. And it was a very different take.
Like opinion and it's each character has their story, but there's like a back plot playing into it.
Yeah. And that's that's what I said to like my co-author. I'm like, if we're gonna do a book that's actually a world, because I don't know how to write any other way, I'm like, it cannot be just like a one standoff book. It's gonna have to be like multiple books. And I'm terrible. Do not think I've written a single book that doesn't maybe have a second one sitting around somewhere, because it's just like everything I do is like a huge world, and I drive people nuts with that.
Like fantasy books.
Yeah.
And I'm the worst at giving a standalone recommendation, to be honest, because I love series. Like, I'm a hardcore series reader. I mean, I have a few standalones, but I look at my bookshelf and I'm like, no, those are majority of like series, or at least oh my gosh, words just fell out of my head. 3.
Oh, it happens to me all the time. Don't worry about it.
Like at least 3 books usually. But yeah.
I mean, I couldn't do like a standalone. Like, I thought Sarah Humphries' series, when she did her Demon Shifter one, I was so scared that was a standalone, and then I actually messaged her and I was like, please tell me there's another one. And she's like, yeah, there is. And that was me. I was just like, oh, good. Yeah, it's like that big breath in, and you're just like, oh no, I have to wait for the next one though. It was like the Discovery of Witches. I waited till like the trilogy was over before I picked them up because I didn't want to be in that situation of having to wait for the next one.
I started when the trilogy was out, but then the last book, now I just forgot it. I can look at
Time something?
Time to Convert?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah,
it's Marcus's book. That one I had to wait for, but I did read the trilogy like back to back, and I love Discovery.
But you had to, like, it was just that kind of thing where you had to binge it. Like, yeah, you had to know, like, and it's the same, like, if I know that one of my favorite authors is coming out with a book, I'm like, damn, I have to, like, binge it all, like,
do you
in one go.
Because people ask me why I reread so much, and it's because when a new book is coming out, I at least try to read the book that came out previously. Because obviously, like, Word just released her Lover Arisen. Just came out, which oddly enough I have not read yet. I'm a mood reader, and I've been in the mood for contemporary, weirdly enough. So I haven't read it yet, but I usually read the book before.
Yeah, it's good because it gets you back into it. Yeah.
Be right before release, but yeah.
Are you like a one book at a time girl, or do you have like a book for the bedroom, book for the car, book for the bath? Yeah.
I usually have a physical book, an audio book, and a Kindle book going at all times.
That is a lot like me.
And sometimes I have different audiobooks downloaded too, and I might switch back and forth because it also depends if my kids are in the car or,
Well, yes, of course. Yeah, because you need a mom book, yeah.
A small child in the back seat. So, then I might put in like a young adult book that's playing, because my kids also love audiobooks, and and my oldest one has loved like Fable by Ariana Young.
Yeah.
and stuff like that. But yeah, so sometimes I have more than one audiobook going, depending on what's going around. But yeah, I usually have four at least at a time.
Yeah, because everyone says to me, "Oh my God, how can you like put a book down, pick up a different one like every night?" And I'm like, I don't really like. It's almost like when I pick it up, that world just like re-emerges me. So like, there's no switch for me. There's no like
I
struggle
usually
between
binge
each
a lot
one.
of this. So
Yeah.
it's easy for me to hop around. Like the Kindle book was B.K. Borison's In the Weeds, which is very much contemporary.
Yeah.
Versus, I also just finished A River Enchanted by Rebecca Ross.
Wow. Okay.
What is it? Enchanted in River or River Enchanted? Beautifully written storyline.
Hmm.
The Scottish lore in that just like sucked me in hard, and I loved it.
Yeah.
So it was a beautifully written book. And so, yeah, I kind of can bounce around because I'm reading different genres and different things are kind of going on. So I don't really mix up the storylines. Versus if I was reading, I think, let's say, like, oh, I don't know, I can't even like, maybe Kenyon and the Zodiac Academy and Ward all at the same time, it might blur together a little bit more just because it's all dealing with
Could you
vampires and shit.
imagine all three together? That would be really interesting.
My husband would be reaping a lot of benefits from that.
Yeah, he'd be like, "Whew, I like this." My husband's the same. Like, if it's been a really steamy book, I'm terrible, and he'll be like, "I don't know what you're reading, but keep reading it." Like, he just enjoys that kind of like, especially or like if I have a sad one and I just need to cuddle, like you have to just cuddle afterwards,
Oh
and I'm
yeah,
just like,
Exodus, Kingdom of Ash too. Like
yeah,
those two books have probably made me cry the very hardest ever. Like to the point where I have to close the book and take like a full break and just have a come apart meltdown. And my poor
yeah,
husband is just like, did someone die? Are
yeah,
you not like what happened? And I'm like, I can't even talk about it. Like I'm just
yep.
he just sits there and is like, okay, you're
Okay.
insane, but I love
I
you.
love
Like
you. Yep. Mine's is exactly the same. And he's just like, or I get him to read a series before me if I think it's going to be really bad, like for that. So, like, what is
oh,
it? The
I'm
Vamp.
over spoilers. I love
Yeah.
spoilers.
Oh, I know. But, and he, so, like, I got him to read, what was it? It was the Something Piers series that was set in space. Red Moon Rising before me.
I haven't read that.
Because it's like a sort of like a fantasy space kind of situation. And I had struggled with Melissa Myers' space one, which had like the Cinderella story in it and all these like sort of fairy tale characters that kind of came to life, but were like had artificial intelligence or they were part robot or whatever. And for me, like, I got him to read it because I'm like, I'm not a spacey girl, but this looks really interesting. And I got him to read it, and then I realized, oh, this is his series. This is something he's into. There's no way I'm going to be able to read it. So I actually ended up finding a book for him that he loved. But then he, like, finds one that I like. In sort of, like, vice versa. Like, he'll read, like, half the book, and he'll be like, this is a one for you. And he just sort of, like, closes it and hands it back to me. Because we both started reading, oh, the one with the masks, and they've got like a oh, his mom's like the head of the command, and oh, I'm trying to remember what it's called now. Oh, that's gonna bug me.
Is it a sci-fi?
No, no, it's fantasy. It's kind of dystopian because it's like they're picked up as children and they're taken to this base, and then they're kind of like forced to train as soldiers, and they wear these like these silver masks.
I don't read a lot of dystopian anymore. I used to love dystopian,
So
but it,
yeah,
it
I haven't really either, and it was like I don't know what got me into it essentially, but I ended up reading Divergent,
I
and then
like
I got hooked on it, and then we kind of just stumbled into like other books like Young Elites, and we found Young Elites, and I was like, "Whoa, this is brutal enough. My husband would like it." So I was like, I handed it to him, and I'm like, you're gonna really like that," and he read it too, and like we just ended up following these paths, and like I ended up finding Shatter Me and I fell in love with
Mhm.
that. That was such a good series. I am gonna miss that series so much now that it's over. And then like somehow managed to stumble into A Court of Thorn and Roses.
Love A Court of Thorns and Roses.
And I totally picked up the Assassin book because I saw your feed and it was on there. Oh,
The Throne of Glass series, yeah.
yeah, Throne of Glass series. And it was like, it was so weird. You'd done this like really
Mhm.
cute post, and I was just like, I have to go get that book. I don't know what it is. I don't know anything about it, but it was like the way you'd done it. I was just like, that's me. Gotta go buy it.
The thing that always amazes me with Throne of Glass is Sarah J. Maas was in high school when she wrote it.
Yeah, I know.
Because I originally started with A Court of Thorns and Roses. That was the first series I'd read of
Yeah,
hers. And you can definitely tell she never wanted that to be YA, but her
no,
publishers pushed for it to be YA. But you can tell it's more of a mature writing style. And then I
yeah,
read Throne of Glass, and at first I was kind of like, when I was reading like the first book of Throne of Glass, I was like, oh,
yeah,
this is like really immature, but it's a YA, so I'm going to keep going because of course, like she's only I think 17 in the book or 18.
yeah,
She's fairly young. And then I was watching Sarah do an interview, and she had mentioned that I can't remember. I want to say she said she was like 15 or 16. I remember thinking that's high school age.
yeah.
And
It's scary, isn't it?
the world she built, like that Throne of Glass series, like knowing that she was that young when she wrote it and she created this world, that is what amazes me with authors. Like, I'm like, holy cow, like, I barely was, pushing past school and, play my sports and do that kind of thing. Like, there's no way
Yeah,
I
you
would.
never think. Yeah. Oh, I was writing when I was in high school. And it was weird because like I got picked on a lot.
Yeah.
I was the kid that was popular, but I was popular because if I wasn't with a certain group of people, they thought that they could pick on me. So like I would have had a probably I would have finished the Immortal series way sooner if it wasn't for the fact that they kept stealing my pages. But yeah, I totally like just switched off a lot of days and I would go write and I was a super volunteer. That's what they called it back then. And I set up dance programs for children who were at risk of drinking and drugs and underage pregnancy. So I was like writing, doing that, and studying for my exams. And I still to this day cannot remember sitting a single one of them. But thank goodness, like I had a scribe at the time because my dyslexia was so, so bad. But yeah, like I totally get like how she can because you start off in English where they're talking about creative writing all the time and it's so easy to learn about world creation through that. And then to go it, to not be able to stop writing and getting addicted to it and getting into that book to the point where you're writing it every night. So yeah, no, I totally respect what she did and like that was kind of like how Marie's World came about was I just couldn't stop dancing. In fact, there was a dance class that I was doing and I had the computer with me and I was writing the book in class
Hmm.
and my friend got so pissed at me. She's like, "You can't dance with a computer. Go put it down." Like, just go put it down. And I'm like, "But I'm writing a book. I don't care. Go put it down." And like, because it was almost like to her, dancing like should have been like here instead of like at my eye level. And the worst thing was, I actually ended up doing the routine better than her. And then she's like, "Go back on your computer," and she just like pointed to the corner. I'm like, "Okay." And she does make an appearance in the series. Is funny, but it's like I can get from like her perspective. When you're younger, you kind of almost have that no fear writing that you don't get when you're older. When
I
you're
think
older, you think about it a lot more.
I could see that, because as we get older, obviously we know more of what's happening in the world and we understand more, and our wisdom grows as we get older, and
Experience life, yeah.
we experience life, and yeah, it does change a lot. Where that innocence of writing when you're young, you're just in your world, and it's great. You're not thinking of all of like, am I being inclusive enough? Did I phrase this properly? I don't want to offend somebody. Like,
Is
it's
this gonna sell? Is it gonna make money? Yeah. Yeah,
yeah.
that
Is
one
this
I
going to
hear a lot.
sell?
Yeah.
Yeah. My oldest daughter, like, right now. She loves to write, and I love it. I definitely don't discourage that. I'm like, yeah, go, sure, go make a book, go write a story. Like, I
I'll
think
read
it's
it. Yeah, yeah. I do that with my my sister. I was lucky enough when I got together with my partner. His stepmom had a little girl, and she's so artistic. So she loves to show me like her masks she makes or the writing she's done, or like, I introduced her to certain books like Marianne Curley, and I introduced her to Debbie Glory. Debbie Glory is the funniest children's writer I've ever met. Um, and she's actually the reason I got into publishing, was because of her. Because
okay.
like I won her writing contest, and she's just like, "What are you doing? You need to be writing. Your worlds and your details is so amazing. Like I created a whole world in a short story."
Mhm.
And she's like, "Despite your dyslexia, it's terrifying what you've come up with." Like, you know,
So I think
from a
dyslexia,
sentence. Yeah,
it's almost because my oldest is also severely dyslexic, and
yeah.
it runs in my family. I don't think I am, or at least
Hmm.
not like a severe case, but my daughter definitely is, and um, I almost think it's encouraged her imagination a
Yeah,
little
it
bit.
does.
Mhm.
It's like somebody just slips the leash almost, because your brain is so much focused on all the creative elements that it's not really kind of doing the logistic side where you're
Yeah,
thinking about grammar and spelling and have I written I am terrible for writing sentences backwards. If I
yeah.
am really into it, to the point where my editor will be like, "Crystal, you've got like 14 sentences that are backwards. What are you doing? Did you read
I know.
this before you sent it to me?"
I
And I'm
do the same
like,
thing with my daughter. Like, okay, we got to reword this just a little bit, but I get where you're going with it.
Yeah, like, and I always feel terrible because I'm like, she must hate me right now. Like, I just got edits back for Waking, and I was just like, ooh, I did a boo-boo, and I've got like three genres going at once, and I'm like, I should have stuck to one. What was I thinking? But I
There's
really
just
did a lot of backstory for that one, so
yeah.
contemporary, but it's got a lot of backstory.
See, I've written short stories, but I've never been able to figure out, maybe because it is, I'm an adult and I'm overthinking it too much, but like I've never been
Yeah,
able to figure out where I want it to go. Like
yeah,
I get ideas and I can do these little short blurts, but then I can't like grow on it. I
expanding.
feel like,
Yeah.
yeah, I kind of like freeze in the thought
Yeah.
process or
I
whatever.
mean,
But
for me, like, I was the same. Like, I can outline stuff really well. And then when I come to write it, I always hit the wall
mhm,
almost because so I have to, like, put it away, walk away for, like, a few months, and then go back and write it
yeah,
because it's the only way that I can log back into it. And for me, like, if I hadn't done a lot of, see, like, the Romance Writers Associations, they
mhm,
have online classes and stuff you can take part in that are free. A lot of them are free.
okay,
They were so helpful because it was like they give you the confidence to write, and sometimes just like you're getting in your own way. You're overthinking it
oh, they're
mentally.
totally. I know that
Yeah.
I tend to
So
get in
they
my
have like all these awesome tricks to kind of get you out of the way of yourself. So like they'll say write it in a whiteboard, like do big like a big whiteboard and just do like bullet points.
okay,
That will work for one person, or doing like a dream map of how you want it to be with lots of like speech bubbles and stuff like that. Or some of them use vision boards. That would drive me mad. I don't think I have the patience to sit and do a vision board, but a lot of them do it like on Pinterest where they'll like save actors that they think looks like
yeah.
characters and locations and stuff. Again, to me, like that would be too much of me playing around and sort of wasting time. So I like to just I will download like a picture of like the nearest person to my character and then I just write. And
The
it's
thing
kind of weird that I look back now and I think when I was looking back at Waking, I'm like, oh my God, I know who that actor is and that actor is. I had to like describe them to a T and not meaning to do it.
yeah,
So FYI, there is a slightly Stefano looking character from Vampire Diaries in my new Waking because I was binge watching Vampire Diaries and he just ended up being one of the guys in there.
inspired writers a lot of
I
stories.
think he does. I I do, and I am not a Damon girl. I'm not a Stefan girl. I am a Klaus girl.
Uh-huh.
But it's like I don't know why, but he just sort of fit my Eric to a T, and I was just like, that's me. I'm done for. Because like if you read Eric, you're gonna love Eric, and that's gonna be the end of it. And all I'm gonna hear is no one's gonna care about the two lead people. They're gonna be all about Eric with those chocolate brown eyes and the dimples and the fluffy hair, and that's all I'm gonna hear about for like till his book comes out. But yeah.
I also love one thing I always love um, is like it's artistry is up for interpretation. It's how each person interprets it, whether it's how the author saw it and then versus
Yeah.
the reader sees it. But then I also love that each reader sees characters a little differently. Where
I love
I'm
that too.
obsessed with Rage from BDB, someone else is obsessed with Zadist or Vicious or
Mm-hmm.
whatever the concept is. And that's one thing I always have loved about stories is that it's whatever resonates with you, and it's however like the artwork or like when artists come out with different characters, it kind of breaks my heart when I see people tearing it apart because I love seeing how each artist sees a character differently, or I love seeing how each reader interprets characters differently. Like where I would see a reader as a total douchebag, and they're like, "No, I love him. He's just a misunderstood soul," and I'm like, "No, they're total ass." Like
That's just, yeah, like yeah. Oh, and I'm with you on that too.
I love talking books like that about people because I love having those conversations of like, why do you love
Yeah.
this character? What is it? What is it about this character that draws you in? Or what is it about this piece of art or, this genre, whatever the conversation might be. That's why I love, Bookstrgam. That's why I started a Bookstrgam was because I wanted
Hmm.
to be able to talk those conversations with people and,
I do as well. Like, I mean, there's so many times where I will pick out a character that seems to be almost like in the background, and
Mhm.
then I'll be like, I want to know about that character. I end up not caring about the lead characters because I'm like, I
Yes.
want to know about this one over here. Like, turn the camera around,
Yes.
because like you just get so sucked in. Like everyone loved. I don't know if you picked up on this, but Enzo when he came into the Vampire Diaries, everybody was crazy about Enzo,
Mhm.
and I didn't. I just he did not sell me on it at all, and I don't know what it was about him, but I didn't feel sorry for him at all.
Yeah.
And that was me. I was just like, "Oh, I'm gonna get so hated for that." But like I have those moments where some new character will get introduced and I'll be like, "No. No, I can't.
Not for me. Yeah.
Not for me." And then I have to just be quiet in the corner because like I don't want to cause a riot, which I have done on
Yeah,
occasions.
but I like, when it's a safe space conversation to,
Yeah.
have that with friends and talk about why they loved that character. Because then I can also go into it with that frame of mind of like, so I don't know if you've chatted with Bound Hobbies, Jen from Bound
Not
Hobbies on
yet, no, but I do hope to eventually.
she she's incredible, and we have had some really we jokingly tell each other we go down rabbit holes, and we are kind of each other's inspiration for rabbit holes.
Yep.
And we will go into like deep conversations about like certain animals or certain book characters or whatever it might be, and we just like dive and it goes deep, and then our
Mm-hmm.
like conversations just start to like spread. It's totally that ripple effect where like you start one thing and it just goes and goes and goes, and I love those conversations that I have with people, and I just think it's really fun.
I think that's like part of it too. Like the book community is so vast and so like extensive that like if I'm going through like a Catherine Cookson period, I can go on to like Instagram and put like Catherine Cookson's tag on there, and
Mm-hmm.
somebody will look at it and go, "Ooh, why is she thinking that?" Or like, and then I might get a message to say, why do you like this character? Like,
Mm-hmm.
somebody will start that kind of conversation with me, and I just love them too. Like, I just feel like I don't know, it just makes me love Instagram in a way that we're having conversations about characters that would never otherwise be known about. So
Well,
who do you wish you had more time to sit and enjoy? Like if you had just time to read, you didn't have to do housework, you didn't have to do anything. It's all taken care of for you, and you got to sit and read and enjoy someone.
again, this comes back to it depends on whatever mood I am in because that can literally depend on the minute.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know. I always love going back to the Harry Potter world. Um,
Yeah.
I think for me too, the first Harry Potter book came out when I was 11. So like
Yep.
I am the original generation for Harry Potter. But at the
Hmm.
same time, I got to enjoy it with my children now, as an adult and my
Yeah.
kids are reading it and stuff. And so I got to relive the joy through them. But see, then it's that same conversation with my children. Their favorite characters are not my favorite characters. And
Yes.
I am not generally one of those people that like roots for the bad guy. I
I
am a super,
know. Yep. I have those feels too. Yep.
and so like I have a friend who loves, the fanfic of like Draco and Hermione, and I'm like, how do you get there? Like, please explain this to me. Um, but I love
I,
how
I
much
still I still say it should have been Hermione and Harry. I'm
I
sorry.
agree. But then again, I love Ginny. Like Ginny Weasley is actually one of my favorite characters, and I feel like so I am not. My family teases me about this because they will sit down and watch all the Harry Potter movies, and I
Yep.
refuse. I refuse to. I mean, I've seen
Yep.
them, and obviously I see them when I walk through the house or whatever. My kids have it on, or my husband, or
Yeah.
whatever. But I don't like the movies because I feel like it leaves out so much,
They
and
do. Yeah.
they leave out so much. And then I sit there and like tear the movie apart, kind of like, well, they
Hmm.
didn't put this character, and that's not how that happened, and that's not who actually says that. And then my
Yep.
husband will turn on the couch, he'll be like, "Stop, just let us enjoy the movie." But like
I'm so much the same. Yeah.
yeah,
I'm
like
terrible for that.
always loved Harry. Like I was a diehard Harry girl, and he's
Yep.
kind of like that first. Actually, my first book. Now that we're talking about this, my very first book boyfriend was actually Oliver Wood. I loved him.
Oh. Yeah.
I loved him, and I think that was like what started my book boyfriends. Years ago when I was a little teeny bopper and stuff. But I remember like midnight because my kids don't get this because
Yeah.
you can download a book digitally at midnight, when it releases or whatever. But
Yeah.
Harry Potter, my mom would take me, and we would go over to Barnes and Noble, and
Stand in the queue.
I would wait in the line and just wait for that next book, and I'd be so excited, and then I would stay up all night reading them.
Yep.
And that last book, book 7, came out when I was because there was like a delay in the time, so I think I was 21. I was 21 because my husband and I had
Yeah.
just
It
gotten
was. It was
engaged.
quite a delay. Yeah.
Yeah, and my brother-in-law and I both got it at the same time. Like I had gone at midnight and gotten it,
Yep.
and I picked up his copy, and he was like, "I'm gonna beat you reading this," and I was like, "No, because you obviously don't know who I am." And
Yeah.
I stayed up and like just binge. I mean, this is before I had kids and a life and whatever.
Yep.
And I had a job where I could read at my desk, and I think I finished that Harry Potter in like I don't know 10 hours or something. And I called him and I was like, "Are you done
Exactly.
yet?" And he's like, "No. How are you done already?" Yeah.
For
So
me, I would say my first one was Old Magic by Marianne Curley. Was like the first book that I fell in love with the leading character.
mhm.
And it was simply because it goes back to medieval times and
Yeah.
it's like magic and this poor guy has no clue what's happening to him and the girl knows everything. So it's
Yeah.
like a total switch. And I just fell in love with that because I'm like, here's like the guy who's so innocent and knows nothing, and then here's the girl that's having to like save his butt because she knows everything, and then there's this evil sorcerer that's trying to like do it. But to me, that should never have been a one book series. It should have been a multiple book series, and that's what even like Marianne was like. She never wanted it to be a one book series. She always had book 2 written. I am dying to know what that second book is because that was like the book that made me totally fall in love with novels, like
Yeah.
of the romantic type. So yeah, I'm begging if her publisher listens, please release that second book because we need to know. We need to know how it ends.
We need closure.
Yeah, and it's troubled me since I was like 11. So like it's followed me my whole life. Because there's so many threads and I'm like, you need to finish it. It's like,
And then even to try and dive into fanfic sometimes, I'm like, no, this isn't
yeah,
how I saw it going.
no, I can't do fanfics for that reason. I just can't. I can't.
I dived into the Akatar fanfic. Sometimes I have to be careful
Yeah.
because some of the way that social media goes, it can get really toxic really quick sometimes,
Yeah, oh
and
gosh, yeah.
it scares me. And so there are some fanfics I like, or I actually don't join author groups on Facebook and stuff anymore because of,
Hmm.
I just don't like to see the turmoil between people. I would,
No, no. And there's
you
so
know,
much.
there is so much, and I wish everyone could just agree to disagree on things. Like,
Yeah.
if you don't agree with it, like that's okay, but you don't have to be cruel about it. Um,
Yes.
and so,
Uh,
yeah,
it, it was like it's so funny you say that because when I actually started and I launched this entire new genre of wrestling romance because it's not really like sports romance. It's like a
right.
totally thing of its own. Then everyone was like, "No, it's sports romance. It's sports." And I like it was almost like a wall went up instantly of like how dare I try and launch an entirely new romance line. And it scared me that that was the reaction, but I was so lucky because my co-author was like, "No, this is a good thing."
Hmm.
Because the angrier they're getting and the more they're talking about it means that more people are going to have a look at our stuff just to see what they're complaining about. And I
Yeah.
got called like everything for, oh, it's fan fiction, it's fan fiction. No, these characters do not exist in wrestling. They don't exist in the real world. It's not that at all. Oh, excuse the tail. But like yeah, I've got like two. I've had one jump down now and I've got another one floating around.
Mine keeps
Oh,
coming back
joy.
and forth.
Yeah. It's because he knows that I'm like doing a podcast, so he's like, oh, I should be on the podcast. And I'm like, no, you really shouldn't. But like, yeah, like to me, I faced a lot of that when I tried to do something completely brand new and that was like conceptual. If it
Hmm.
had been like, if it had come from a mainstream publisher, I don't think there would have been the same reaction. But because we were an independent author set doing it with an independent publisher, it was almost like people were not happy about that being the situation. So, like, I'm very careful now what I do on social media because I'm almost like aware that that rush can come back again. So I
Yeah.
kind of like, I hold myself back a lot more now and I'll be like, I'll tweet and stuff because I have a lot of wrestling friends and wrestling fans. Like, I got John Cena followed me a couple years ago and I must admit, like my whole heart just like crushed in my chest. I'm like, John's following me? Like, oh, this is weird. But it was funny to me because he had heard about the wrestling romance stuff that I was doing, and he was so supportive of that. And I believe he still is actually. So to me, it was almost like a validation of okay, I might be putting up with a lot of crap right now, but it will be worth it if I just keep going and keep changing things. So I kind of
Well,
use that as a guide.
yeah, and I think it's a lot of times it's finding like your target readers too. Like
Yeah.
your target readers are gonna love you. Like I don't know. I've had a couple authors reach out to me for arcs, and I always ask a couple questions when an author reaches out. Does it have triggers in it? What's the synopsis about it?
Yep.
And I had, a really nice author. He reached out to me, and it was a horror novel.
Oh,
I am a scaredy cat. Like I
so
cannot.
am I. Yep.
I have a cat hair like right in my eye. I cannot do scary novels because I'm also a mom and a wife. I need to be able to function for my children, and if I'm not
Yep.
in a good frame of mind, that's definitely going to affect my babies.
Oh,
And
it
so
definitely does. Yeah.
I was really nice to him, and I replied back to him, and I just said I appreciate you taking the time to reach out to me and ask if I would be interested in it. Sadly, this is just not a genre for me, but I could put a couple feelers out there for other readers that do
Yeah.
read this type of book. They would be a better target audience for you than I would, because also me reading a horror novel, I don't write bad reviews, but that's not going to get a good review for me either.
No. No.
So I feel like finding your target is definitely key as well. Because like
Yeah.
I love spicy books. I love
Yep.
paranormal romance. I love like fantasy novels. Like that is my jam. So yes, I tend to read a lot more by those authors because that's, what draws me in. I love the witchy books. I love everything like that. But I'm not one to, deal with, dark romance isn't really my jam.
No.
It's just not my thing. But I have
Yeah.
friends that love it. So like I'll have
Share.
conversations with them, and if I get like an arc, I'll say like, "Oh no, you might want to reach out to this Instagrammer or
Hmm.
this, reader." Or I have a friend that's not on Bookstrgam that probably could read it. But that's the joy of reading books is finding what works for you, and
And
everyone
it is
has.
such a vast world, and you're like, we're almost like we're all interconnected too. So, like, we do
Mhm.
eventually find the right people. I think it takes us, like, as authors, it takes us a long time to find those people because we're kind of like groping in the dark a little bit
Oh,
till
sure.
we, like, yeah, until we find people that are like, oh, yeah, I know a group that'll read this. And, like, when I wrote my series, it wasn't a case of, like, I was thinking about, okay, he's going to pick this up because I wasn't. I was just
Mhm.
like, I'm writing this story for me and him, and that's all that that really matters. But
Yeah.
when I did Immortals, I did think, okay, this is a fantasy series, and I'm writing it for fantasy readers. I don't care about anything else. I'm just writing it for fantasy readers. And I had I can't remember what it was. I think it was like Back in Time with this by oh dear me. It was a Scottish time travel novel by Laurie Foster, and I loved it.
Okay.
And that kind of like was the doorway for Immortals to come out for me.
Mhm.
And I wrote Carla, and it, like the response I got because I didn't know the right people to talk to
Mhm.
almost like crushed me to the point where I didn't want to write the second one because it was like
Yeah.
I had people saying could not finish or skip to the first 150 pages. Things like that just totally floored me. And then I got to the point where I just stopped reading, like, the people that were doing the art readings, just because it was like, I took the creative criticism really well, but it was like that almost, you're never going to be able to finish this, was just like, it was heartbreaking, especially when you were getting people that were coming back and saying, oh my God, this is really good. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah.
So I had to
Finding
learn that.
and also finding because like I actually had an author friend reach out to me and she was like, "Hey, I want you to beta read my book because I know you are a moody reader." Like
Yeah.
she wanted that because she was like, "I need to know if it's going to keep your attention because of how
Hmm.
moody." And I admit, like, and I will tell a lot of times, like, if I get asked to read an arc, I will tell authors, like, "Okay, I may. What's your timeline on this? Because I have to be in the mood to read certain kinds of books, or else it's not going to work, and I don't
Yeah.
want it to be." What I love that the not right now is actually becoming a phrase like we use
Yep.
DNF or I love that not right now is becoming a thing because there are books that are just not right now for me. Like it's
Yeah.
not that the writing's bad and it's amazing and I'm really, I could be really enjoying the book, but then, my
Life
mood shifts.
happens.
I'm a Gemini. My mood can shift in, a blink
Yep.
of an eye. And so, um, yeah, it's finding the people that want to read
Yeah.
your book at that time too. Because like for
Yeah.
me, I can love paranormal romance 1 minute and I'm like, no, I need a YA contemporary romance where there's no spice in it. And then like the next minute, I'm like, I need this
I
to
need
be downright
spice. Yeah.
amazing. Like, yeah.
Yeah. And that was the thing about Carla is I didn't have any spice in it. It was a pure YA, but it
Hmm.
had like the grit to it, almost
Yeah.
like that made it good.
Yeah.
And I kind of like do I think I do sit and think the second book's sitting there and I really should do it. And I think I will do it at some point. I will release the second book.
Uh-huh.
But it's like I'm almost trying to build my confidence back up to
Yeah.
the point where I'm like, I can do this again. I can put this out there again.
Well, I think
S-
people need to remember that authors they have lives and they go through
yeah,
things by writing these stories that you know may play a part in their books. Books are
Hmm.
based on inspiration and stuff. And if, that author is facing, a health crisis or,
Yep.
some sort of trial in their life, like that may play into the book. And I think readers need to give a little bit more forgiveness for that. Or also
Yeah.
remember that, because, I've joked about this, like that didn't go where I was thinking it was going to go.
Yep.
But I'm never one to tear apart an author because a book didn't go where I thought it should go because I
Yeah.
don't own those characters. As much as like I jokingly tell everyone that like Rage is my book boyfriend and I love him and I'm obsessed, like
Yep.
I respect where the author has taken her story because it's her story and I
Yeah,
get the privilege
exactly.
of reading it.
Yeah,
And so,
exactly. And it's good, like, and I kind of keep saying this, like, it's good for everyone to be able to sit down on a podcast and express these things because this is like how it sort of spreads out in an
mhm.
almost way of kind of helping the industry soften a little bit because we've had a lot of hard years
I think
as
so.
authors. Yeah.
I'm sure. Yeah.
And this is kind of like a great way for a lot of authors who've been terrified to come back into writing after the pandemic, especially that, hey, there is people out there who's going to sit there and they're going to genuinely read your book and enjoy it, and they're not going to be looking to tear you down because that's their stress relief or that's what they need to make themselves feel better. And everyone forgets authors are dead sensitive people too. Like they're literally taking a piece of our heart, sticking it in a book, and giving them to people. And I think everyone sort of forgets that's part of the experience of that.
Yeah.
And I kind of remind, like, if I'm in a couple of review groups and I've had to take people aside and just say, hey, you do realize this person's got feelings, right? Like the authors do go and read these things. And I mean, Sarah Humphrey said that as well. Like, she's like, she doesn't read her reviews because she's like, in a way, you got to like separate yourself so that you don't get your heart broken. But at the same time, you listen to them at the signings, and if they say it to you, then you take that as creative criticism, and you kind of make those adjustments. And that particularly is what I do. Like, I adore my character Harold. Is my favorite character of all ever. And he is such a bad boy, but in a way, he's funny because you can tell he's super intelligent, but he has no idea about women or love or anything like that's to
Yeah.
do with emotion. And, he's chasing this girl that he's never going to keep. But you kind of almost root for him because you're like,
But
dude,
I
this is
forever
not
love you.
happening. Yep. And like that's that and when his book comes out, I think it is such a big book. This like it's gonna be about 1,000 pages. It's a huge book.
Yeah.
And it is taking me years to write it. But it will be so funny because it's almost like you'll understand the reason that he's so bad with people.
Yeah.
And you will feel so sorry for him because the stuff that he goes through in that novel, especially the stuff Marie puts him through in that novel, you're just like, dude, give up already. Like, this is just not going to work out for you. Like,
Yeah.
especially when your own brother's saying, dude, she's coming on to me. This is not going to work.
Yeah.
Like, there's just that humor to it. And things like he gets himself in all these sticky situations where he'll walk in on something and he'll be like, oh God, did I see that? Like, and he turns around and he has to walk away, kind of thing.
Yeah.
He has like the worst timing too, so that's funny, and it's weird because when I wrote that particular character, my friend is such a huge inspiration for that, and sometimes I would text him and say, would you actually do this in this situation? And almost like test the water to see if it would be like something he would do. And the two are so much alike. And it's not the character he plays on television, it's the character, like himself. And the
Yeah.
character is so much alike. To the point where he's like, I want to read the book, but he's like, I'm kind of scared that I'm going to get like all texty angry with you because like there'll be too much of me in the characters. And I'm like, yeah, probably don't read it. But it's fun. It is fun. And I keep like unlike Vampire Diaries, I actually do keep all the diary entries going throughout the entire series.
Yeah.
So everybody's got diaries. So it's kind of like good to see like how they write differently from each other as well. And by the way, getting into a mid 20-year-old guy's mind and having to write a journal entry for that it's harder than people realize. Like, I didn't realize how hard that was gonna be.
I think it's I like so my friend Jacqueline Osborne, she's also an
Yeah.
author. Her very first book, I'm one of the characters in it actually. And
Oh,
I remember
cool.
her asking me if that was okay, and I was like, yeah, sure, that's fine. And she mentions, I'm trying to remember if it was purple or pink hair at the time. I want to say it might be purple hair. But she
Yeah.
mentioned like the funky colored hair and that I was a cosmetologist and but
Yep.
I went into it thinking that was really cool, that I inspired the
Mm-hmm.
character and um I don't know, I don't look at it as offensively unless it's taking, I guess with permission, it's fine. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
she asked me and she was like, "Are you cool with this? Like, can I use a name similar to yours and your description?" And I
Yep.
loved it. And I thought it was great.
It must be weird for the actors out there because, like, I don't think they realize how many of us authors
Use them
kind
as
of like,
inspiration.
yeah, like we steal them. Like, we will binge all their interviews, like, that we can get our hands on, and then their little character traits or the little, like, things that interest us end up
The
becoming
mannerisms. Yeah,
characters.
yeah.
And I mean, I must
It's
admit, like,
actually people watching in general too, like
yeah.
sitting at the park and watching how someone interacts with somebody else, or
Hmm.
um, little. What's funny is like you even just going back and like watching my own reels
Yeah.
on my Instagram, like there's things I didn't realize about myself that I do. I like for what I talk out of the side of my mouth. And I realized it in reels, and my husband's like, "Yeah, you've always done that. Like that's just
That's
who
just who
you are."
you are. Yeah.
But I didn't notice this, and I'm almost 36 years old, and I'm just now learning this about myself. So I think that's just just the picking up on mannerisms that anybody does and stuff.
And
Or
that's the thing with authors, we're so detail oriented that we
yeah.
actually do notice these things.
Mhm.
And it's so funny being like when I was in the wrestling rocker rooms and I was actually doing the writing, you're writing for that particular person and you're writing for their character. And what people don't realize is wrestlers, it's like you turn the volume up on their personality and their ego, and that's how their wrestling characters are created. So, like, for me, if I was writing something for them, they used to get so annoyed at me because I would pick up on the tiniest little things. Like, I had one guy who could not stop touching his hair, right?
Yeah.
He could not go an entire conversation without going, like, fluffing it and
Oh,
stuff.
I nervously touch my hair too. I don't know if you've noticed
Yeah,
that.
I no, I did. I just didn't say anything. But he was terrible for it. And so I wrote it into like this storyline that one of the girls would like pull his hair every time she got. And it drove him mad to the point where he stormed into the locker room. He's like, "You're not writing about my hair anymore." And I'm like, "But you don't realize that's the thing that everybody's noticed about you. Like the entire audience has noticed that you have an obsession with your hair."
Yeah.
5 years later, it made him into somebody really big in wrestling, and he came back and he said, "Okay, you have a point. Thank you." It's like it was the hair that the girls fell in love with too, and he became a heartthrob for that reason. But if
Yeah.
I hadn't picked up on the fact that he couldn't stop touching his hair, I actually, to begin with, wondered if he had just like an itchy head, that he was
Yeah.
scratching it or something. No, it turned out that he had just had an obsession with how fluffy it was. He liked the sensation of it bouncing.
Oh.
And I couldn't resist writing that. I couldn't. And I look back and I think, yeah, there's maybe some things I shouldn't have written down. But
I think
you live and learn. You live and
my
learn.
hair has now reached a length where I usually always have short hair, and then I don't have a
Same. Yeah.
hairdresser in my new state that we live in. And
Yeah.
so this is the longest my hair has been in years.
Years.
So now it's the awkward length of like, okay, well, it won't stay behind my shoulders, and then it like falls forward. So that's what I keep fidgeting, and I like
Yeah.
try to twist it to get it back. But
And you can't put it in a ponytail. I trust me, I've been there. When I had to grow mine out for the wedding, I went crazy with it because I was like, I can't tie it in a ponytail. I can't pleat it. That like early kind of awkward stage of it not being shoulder length, but it's like at your neck. I
yeah,
hated it. But I've been
get it up. But
yeah, I tie mine up all the time because there is nothing worse if you're writing than having your hair constantly in your face.
in your face. Yeah.
Or you're reading and you end up like really interested in the book and then you breathe in, you end up with like a mouthful of hair.
There was that
And
single hair that like tickles you in the nose.
yeah, and you think it's like, or you think it's like a spider that's fallen on your face. Like I've had that moment of it touches my nose and I just sort of freak out and like
Yeah.
do this. Yeah. But to be fair though, I was the first place me and my partner stayed at. I went to go to the bathroom one night and a spider fell off the ceiling and landed on my face. Oh my god. Total freak out session.
Oh yeah.
I think I screamed like a blood curdling scream. My partner came running out. He's like, "What's wrong? What's wrong? What's wrong?" And I'm pure smacking my face, going, "A spider fell at my face." And he's like, "It's dead. You've killed it like 50 times by now, and you just don't realize it." But no, like in my new house, there's huge spiders. So I'm always like, I now look up every time I go to turn on the light switch. I'll look up just to be sure there's no spiders around because of that.
Yeah. I have a spider fear as well. And there's big tarantulas here in New Mexico that really
Oh,
freak me out.
yeah, no, no. I can understand that. I'd be running. I would, yeah, I would be running. So is there an author, past or present, who's influenced you, inspired you, or got you really excited about books that maybe we haven't talked about?
I so past, I love Little Women. Like I'm not one to read a lot of the classics,
Yeah.
but I think I own like 4 or 5 different versions of Little Women. So
Hmm.
Louisa May Alcott is definitely like up there as far as like a past author that I've
Yeah.
really enjoyed. Um, I don't know. There's so many, and the one thing I love about Bookstrgam is actually like getting to know authors.
Yeah.
So I've gotten to know, several, okay, quite a few, amazing authors. But Noelle Rain, she wrote An Empress of Air and Chaos.
Uh-huh.
She's one of the most recent ones that like I've interacted with a lot. I'm on her hype team. I got to
Yeah.
beta read the second book of An Empress of Steel and Fire, and I don't think she realizes how incredible I find her. Like just
Yeah.
talking to her, and she's Scottish, and so she'll, there was a couple phrases in her books like "chap the door"
Yep.
was mentioned, which is not an American phrase, and
Nope,
so I
it's
was
definitely not.
yeah, and so it actually became a conversation in the beta group. What is "chap the door?" And I don't know,
Very
she just
Glasgow, actually. Very Glasgow scene.
yeah, she's one of those present ones that just have really like inspired me, and I don't know, they make me think like she's so positive when she talks to
Hmm.
people and she's so supportive, and if I was to say to her like I think I want to write a book, she would literally divulge as much information as she
Yep.
could to help me be successful. And
Yeah.
AP Wallstrom is another one that I read the Savage Sea by her. And
Hmm.
she's another one that I've quickly become friends with. And it's kind of that same thing. She was actually asking me, what is a hype team? She's a very new author
Yep.
she's, just coming on, and she knew I was on Noelle's hype team, and she says, "Do you think Noelle would mind if I reached out to her?" And I think she did. I'm not 100% sure, but I think Alex did reach out to Noelle, and I
Yeah.
know just seeing these authors also work together and like try to support each other,
We
and
do, yeah.
yeah, I think that's incredible. I love seeing authors want to see other authors succeed and not look at
Yes.
them as a threat to
Yeah.
their book, because it's really not. Like what
No.
resonates with one is not going to resonate with another. There's no way to make everyone happy. So
No.
it's finding your readers, and it's finding those
Hmm.
people that, love your work, and I love seeing, Noelle be really supportive, and Miranda Lynn is another indie author that I have dealt with a lot. I'm on all 3 of their hype teams: Miranda Lynn's, Noelle Rand's, and AP Wallstrom, who's
How
Alex.
do you
Uh,
balance all the hype teams? Like that must be a skill and a half.
you know what? It's actually really easy when you truly love their books.
Yeah.
Because like An Empress of Air and Chaos, I've read it twice now. Like it came out last year. I've read it twice. I got to beta read the second book, and I'm genuinely obsessed with the story. Like,
Yeah.
I get teased in the hype group that because I told you I like to fall for the good guys. I don't.
Yeah.
That morally gray character is not usually my thing. And the one character, Gideon, there's not as many readers on that brother's team, and I'm like a hardcore like Gideon fan, and I get teased. So to me, like balancing the hype teams, it's and the hype teams that I'm on, they don't have a lot of requirements necessarily of like
Yeah.
you have to do this, this, and this for me. Like it's like, hey, can you post my book once a month or like mention it in your stories or
Yeah.
and for me that's easy because it's genuinely books that I love. Like I would never join a hype team. I will never join a hype team on a book that I don't actually want to hype up. Like if it's not for me, I'll just be honest and just say that's not
Yeah.
a book for me.
And I
But
think hype teams are sort of becoming this new tool for authors, like particularly readers out there who don't know, or writers out there who don't know. But hype teams are such a new thing because we've had street teams before, we've had sort of Twitter teams before, but it's kind of always evolving, like because there's more social media and there's more, almost like we don't have enough time to like write and edit and then do the social media and the marketing. So it's almost like you're kind of having to trust other people to come in and help you now.
yeah,
And that's where I say to everyone, I'm like, we just gotta it's okay to let these people in, and you have to trust them and you have to just go with it. But yeah, I know of a lot of authors that want to do these hype teams, but they're genuinely scared. Like, oh, what if I put out a forum and nobody, wants to sign up and stuff?
So one thing you could do is like this is what's happened with me. So like Alex, for example,
Yeah.
AP Wallstrom is her book, The Savage Sea. She reached out to me because I had read. She asked if I would read The Savage Sea. I
Yeah.
read it and I put the arc or the review up on my Instagram. I enjoyed the book. I had a good time. We went back and forth and chatting. And then, we kind of grew that relationship. So as far as like an author to a reader, this is like
Yeah.
what I've enjoyed. So this is like my view on it. If I have reviewed your book and I really enjoyed your book, and then you come and ask, would you be interested? Or like, we've built that bond or whatever. It's really easy to join a hype team at that point.
Yeah.
Also, like so I think reading your own reviews in that sense, if you can find people that have written good reviews, is a good way to start building a hype team. And finding, because a lot of times you'll find, like, for example, on Alex's hype team, she found several more readers through me. Because I had reviewed her book, and then I got my friend Tiffany to read her book, and then I got my friend Elise to read her book, and it kind of grew from there. And then
dominoes, yeah.
Yeah, I told, Alex that I had gotten them to read it, and so then she started talking with them as well. And then when they posted their review, then all of us ended up on her little hype team together. And generally, I find most the hype teams I'm on are not big hype teams. I think each one does them, their own thing differently. But the hype teams I'm on are not overly huge, which I like because then I've also gotten to know the other readers that are on the hype team, and I've gotten to have conversations with people that like books that are along the same thing that I love.
Yeah, and it's good socially as well. And I must admit, like, I would have loved to have known like a bit more because it wasn't something I was taught about really when I started out. Because when I started out, it was street teams and you had to pay money for them and all this sort of stuff. And I never did that, but I would sit and I'd have conversations with readers. I mean, I remember having my Facebook open and I would literally answer people and talk to people while I was writing the books. And I still do that to this day. Like I could be mid-flow and if somebody messaged me, I would automatically respond. It's just my habit. But it's a good habit to have where you have that communication, you are building these relationships. And I almost feel sort of like good about that because I have sales, even if they're not huge sales, I have consistency where I know like at least one will sell a month or whatever. And that's simply just based on having these conversations, going on interviews, cultivating like friends and working that kind of way. And I mean, I've been asked if I would have a hype team a couple of times, because like I'm going into a new publisher. This is like a whole different kind of way of working. It's a brand new experience. And I was like, yeah, I think I would. And then they ask you to put a list together of people that they can contact and say, hey, would you read the arc? And then if you like it, would you mind typing it? And it's almost like you get that, it's like a roller coaster ride for an author because like you get them like 10 names or 15 names or whatever. And
Mhm.
then you have to like sit on the edge of your seat while you wait to see if they'll take you in or not. And I had a lot of I met quite a few booktubers and stuff, and I had my heart broken by a few of them because they all said no. We only do mainstream publishers. And I was just like, oh, because I really loved the way that they were interacting with the books and they were talking about the books. And I thought, wow, that's the dream to have somebody to sit there and talk about my book in that way that, they are. And I just loved it.
Yeah.
So if you were to be in a bookstore and you had infinite amount of money, where do you think you would drift to first?
Fantasy. Fantasy and paranormal is always where I go to first. Like,
I'm the
and
same.
then
Yep.
I'll work my way down to romance and YA. That's like literally like my circle that I make every time. Every once in a while, I try broadening my views on books, or like if I've gotten a recommendation from someone.
Yeah.
I used to read a lot of mystery novels, actually.
Oh,
I used to
wow.
love, yeah, I did. I did used to read a lot of mystery. I loved them until I had children. And then,
Yeah, then you're like, oh no.
yeah, so I had actually, it was a Mary Higgins Clark book I was reading, and I
Yep.
had just given birth to my first daughter.
Yep.
And like she literally was probably like 2 months old, like she was tiny.
Yep.
And the book I had picked up, because I had read so many of Mary Higgins Clark at this point, like I just,
Yeah.
she at that point was an auto by author. Like I just, a new release came out, I picked it up, I loved it.
Yep.
I'd picked up like the newest one when my daughter was born, and an infant was killed in that.
Oh no.
And I was like,
Yeah.
I'm done. I'm out. Like I can't
Yep.
do this. And
Yep.
then I tried a different mystery novel not long after that, and I found that definitely things that are going on in my personal life affect how I am as a reader,
Yep.
which I think is semi-normal with people. When
It is, yeah.
I'm down, I either want a really feel-good book to bring me up, or I want to wallow, and so I'm going to find a book that's going to make me cry as hard as I possibly can. I don't know.
Yeah, it's good. It's good releasing. Yeah.
Yeah, but I found, so it wasn't, I actually think I became more of a fantasy reader after I had children.
Yeah.
I mean, I still loved it before then. I'd read a lot of fantasy, but I was more of a paranormal for sure, and like mystery. And I love Iris Johansen. I actually still am a big Iris Johansen reader. I
Yeah.
still love a lot of her books. And in fact, one of her books, it's funny how like the book cannot. You had asked me this question before, like what book really influenced me, and it just occurred to me that it's an Iris Johansen book. It's
Yeah.
The Ugly Duckling, actually.
Oh, right.
Yeah, I read it when I was 16, and I was going through a really hard time,
Yeah.
and I read that book, and the heroine in that book goes through some serious, stuff, and
Stuff. Yeah.
she finds her own strength, and she kind of comes into her strength, but even it's a little bit later in life that she comes into her strength.
Yeah.
And that book has stuck with me ever since. So I have read it every year since I was 16. So we're going on 20 years. I'm 36 next month.
Wow.
So
Yeah.
for 20 years, I have read this book every single year.
That is
And
something. Yeah. That is the kind of books that I talk about that you can't go without reading. I mean, I know for me, if I'm going through like a really bad time, I will pick up The Horse Whisperer because that to me was such a powerful story. I hate the end of it, and I used to never read the end because I like the ending of the film better than I like the ending of the book.
yeah.
But I did and it's like my go-to, or if I'm really kind of in a dark place, I always pick up a Rachel Caine book, and I'm so sad she passed away this last year. But she was an incredible author, and her writing almost makes you kind of feel like somebody's literally lifting your spirits up from the inside. And I
Yeah.
always used to say that to her. I'm like, didn't matter what was going on in my life, if I just suddenly picked up one of her books, that was me. I was just lifted off the ground. Have you actually seen her library series that she did, where the library has like all the knowledge and is controlling the world?
I don't think I have.
I would highly recommend that actually. It
I'm
is.
gonna write it down maybe
Yeah,
before we
it's the
can.
library series by Rachel Kane. Oh,
Rachel.
I mean, the idea of like portals and books, and she takes Kindle to like a whole new level. There's like a whole new level of what a Kindle is, and publishing is against the law and all sorts. It is amazing. Most
Library
uplifting series.
by Rachel Kane.
Yeah, yeah. She's amazing. See that I'm even giving out
We are
recommendations on the podcast, which is
Kane tier.
probably her hype team's certainly going to be messaging me going, "You're hyping her without us being involved." But no, like I only just found that one this year because I was quite far behind in hers, and I just was like, "Wow!" And it's, there's like a Welsh character, and she has all these different characters to it, and you kind of like there's a thing called book lickers to give you a laugh. So that should make you kind of your curiosity should be
Is that
going now.
comparable to book sniffers?
Say that
Like
again.
I'm is that comparable to like a book sniffer? Someone that
It's
sits and
worse. It's worse than what a book sniffer is, right? So just trust me, like you'll read the first one and then you'll be messaging me like, okay, I know what you're talking about. Like, what the hell? But there is so many moments that makes you laugh in her stuff. And it was like the same with the Morganville series. Like, there was this demented scientist who just gets involved in this teenage physicist's life, and no matter what she does, he is just bats crazy. Absolutely crazy. And he's an old vampire that likes to run around in bunny slippers, but they're vampire bunny slippers. And if he can't find his bunny vampire slippers, then all hell's gonna break loose because he has to have his bunny vampires. Like, it's just these little things she does that makes you kind of feel lifted up almost. And then I went and I read her crime series she did. Well, honestly, like it must have been a dark period of her life that she tapped into because it was just wow. Just like hitting a wall of darkness. It was just incredible.
The darkest book I've read lately is Stalking Jack the Ripper by Carrie.
Oh, I
I can
loved
never
that.
say her. Yeah, Maniscalco.
Carrie begins with an
Not
M, doesn't it?
yeah. Is it Maniscalco? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, Maniscalco, yeah.
I'm probably butchering that, and I'm sorry, Carrie, if I
So am
did.
I. Yeah, I'm
Um,
terrible for that too. Don't worry about it.
so I read Stalking Jack the Ripper, which is a little darker than I've read the recently.
Yeah.
Um, I really liked it. I actually listened to the audiobook of it, and now I'm reading the Prince Dracula one, the second book.
That one was really good. And I was cold the entire time I read it. I got like the snowy vibes, where you're like
Yeah, because
burr
she's
and you're.
uh, not Transylvania.
Yeah, it's Transylvania.
Is it? Yeah, it is
Yeah,
Transylvania.
it's
Because
Transylvania, yeah.
but I've just gotten to where she's gotten to the school, and
Yeah.
she's in a room right now, and yeah, like she feels someone there, and it's the maid or whatever, but yeah,
She's totally
that's
creeped out by it, yeah. Wait till you
but
get to the Houdini one. The Houdini one is really good.
I loved Kingdom of the Wicked, like her witch one, and Kingdom.
I'm gonna try that one. I got like the Fairy Loot version, so it's got like
Oh, I'm so
the
jealous.
special like pages and stuff. Yeah.
I have the bookish box ones, and they're beautiful.
Oh,
But
they
I
really are.
actually, if you like audiobooks, listen to the audiobook of Kingdom of the Wicked. It is the narrator does such a beautiful job. It literally makes me wish I could teleport and just be in Italy and
Yeah.
like look at the food and experience because like she talks details like food and the smell of the oregano and the parsley and I'm like, oh, I just want to be there.
You want the food more than anything. Yeah. Yeah.
But I actually, it's funny because how we're talking about like relationships with books. I feel like on Bookstagram, that is definitely like a love hate series. Like people either
Yeah.
love it, or they hate it, and there's like no middle ground with that series.
There's not no.
I
Yeah.
fall into the I love it series. I love the Kingdom of the Wicked books. I'm so excited for the next one. Like That's probably one of my most, it's up there for one of my most anticipated reads. It comes out in what, September?
Yeah, September, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and
It's
then
crazy how quick it's coming, yeah.
I know, I'm so excited. I love that one. I'm
Because
very excited.
I've been putting off the new Sarah J. Maas read because I'm actually behind because I've had my Open University course this year. I haven't gotten to read Kingdom of Ash, and I'm like behind on the two sort of Court of Thorns and Roses ones. So I'm like, that's my if once I finish my course, I can indulge read,
Yeah.
and I'm like holding on to it with dear life.
So you haven't
But
read Crescent City, the two Crescent City books yet?
no, I haven't, and I'm holding out for that too because I have them, and they're sitting there on my TBR, and they're staring at me, going, please read me," and I am like, yeah, I'm dying because I really want to be reading them, but I have to read my university stuff.
Which series is my favorite out of the three? You know, the Throne of
Yeah,
Glass and the Crescent City and the and I don't. Again, it comes down to my mood because it's like, do I want that fantasy romance of
hmm
ACOTAR? Because while Kingdom or Throne of Glass is fantasy, it to me falls into more fantasy versus fantasy romance. Like
yeah,
ACOTAR is fantasy romance.
yeah.
Throne of Glass is more fantasy. Um,
I would
I
agree. Yeah.
love and then I love Crescent City. Sarah J. Maas is just one of those like detail writers, and I enjoy the heavy detail and
I like
I
that too.
like Run, however we want to say it, from Crescent City.
Yep.
He's top in the book boyfriend list, so when you get there, just know
Oh, I'm dreading it a little bit because of that. I'm like, oh no.
he's
I
got
just
one on the list.
I'm about to go back into the Raven Boy series by Maggie
I
Stafler.
have the first book, but I haven't read it yet.
The first one, I was kind of confused on it. Like, I was almost like not sure of what was going on, and then the more it went on, it kind of became clearer. So it's kind of one where you've got to put like trust into the whole
Yeah,
thing.
that's kind
And
of
it
how the
was,
Raven like Flocked, Exodus, and Finish
yeah,
Line are.
yeah.
Yeah,
And then I went into Victoria Aveyard's series. See the
I have Vespertine by her, but I haven't read it yet.
it's the glass one, the crown. Oh, Red Queen, I think it
Oh,
is.
am I thinking of? No, I'm thinking of a different author. Sorry, I confused them.
Yeah,
Vespertine by Maggie.
is it not Maggie Stifler?
No, I think it is Maggie Stephen. Is that for Vespertine? I think that is Maggie Stephen.
Yeah, yeah.
Are we talking the same author? We are talking the same.
No, like yeah, like the Raven Boys was the one that I picked up from her, and then I went on to the Red Queen by Victoria Aveyard, and
Okay.
that to me reminded me a lot of the X-Men in a
Mm-hmm.
way, but with
I haven't read
like, oh, it's one to try if you liked Throne of Glass and you just want a little bit more, I would say, action going on.
it. Mm-hmm.
That one is one to try because it is
Isn't
more actiony.
isn't Red Queen kind of a mixture of maybe Throne of Glass and Cruel Prince?
Yeah, yeah, I
See,
would definitely say that.
my best friend loves the Cruel Prince. I fully support her love of the Cruel Prince.
Yeah,
I think because I'm older and I tried to read the Cruel Prince, I couldn't get into the Cruel Prince.
I couldn't
Um,
either, but it's almost like Victoria finds that way to just kind of turn it so it's not like boring almost, and
mhm.
it's not just like a pure romance with fantasy in it. It's just you've got the action and you've got the, oh, are they going to make it, and would these two finally just fall in love already? Like
Yeah.
there's an element of frustration to it. It's like I've been putting off Betrothed, which was, I think it's supposed to be like the final book in the search for a new queen for the prince kind of series. Oh, I wish I could remember who wrote that now.
I can see the cover, but I don't know who the
Yeah, it's got
author is.
like the beautiful girl in the dress. And I liked that series because they were so easy to read. But it's
Mhm.
kind of like I've been going through this almost because I've been reading stuff for university. I'm like, when I pick up something, I want it to be simple, pure fantasy. I don't need to think about it. I can just like
Just
almost
hear
like
it.
decompress.
Yeah.
Because like the sort of like I've been reading Thomas Harding, um, The Maddening Cry. Far from the Maddening Cry was one of the ones I had to read, and You've Got Othello, which was another one we had to read, and it was like a lot of heavy going
Hmm.
stuff that we were reading. And then we were dissecting it. And now I'm on to Ursula, and I'm not a space reader. I struggle with space books. I think
I'm not a huge sci-fi reader myself.
no, and I'm struggling
But
with it.
Diane
And
Paul has a good, I would almost call it like fantasy sci-fi or paranormal
yeah.
sci-fi. Have you read anything by Diana Duvall?
No, I've seen it, but it's been like that way where I'm almost like uneasy about picking anything up that's got to do with space.
So hers I love because she writes the Immortal Guardian series, which if you
Yeah.
like Ward and you like Kenyon,
Yeah.
you probably would like Diane Duvall too.
Oh, cool.
She's one of those ones that each book is a couple, but it builds off of a world. And
Yeah.
so the Immortal Guardian series is, vampire-ish series, and then it's got the spin-off series that is actually more sci-fi. It's still that fantasy sci-fi because the Immortal Guardians still play a part into it.
Yeah.
And I think that's why I can handle that one because it's not straight sci-fi, but
Yeah.
it's got those fantasy elements or the paranormal elements into it that I
Yeah.
do enjoy. But yeah, it's
Have you read Stardust?
I own Stardust.
Have you read
By
it?
Neil.
Neil Grayson? Grayman?
Yeah, my friend Rachel. We had gone to the bookstore when I was back in Utah, and she's like, "You have to read this. You'll love this." So I had picked it up, but I haven't read it yet. But
It
yes, I
is
do.
it was the hardest book I've ever read
Really,
because
it's not a very big book, right?
it's not a very big book, but it jumps around so much. And I don't know why I find it so difficult because it is a fairy tale style book. And we were
Mm-hmm.
reading it for university, and I was just like, I've seen the film. I had no understanding of the film whatsoever. And I thought, I was a little bit scared to read the book because I'm like, I didn't like the movie at all. And then I picked up the book, and it was like, I was completely lost like 80% of the time. And
It
everybody's
could
like,
be not for you right now kind of book.
yeah. And I was like, I felt so bad because here I am doing it for university. And I was like, I wish I'd done this at a time where maybe I just finished Sarah J. Maas and I needed another fairy tale story, you know?
You know what's funny? I hated reading for school. I
Hmm.
took like AP English lit classes because I like English and stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
I hate
but I
dissecting it too, where you have to like
hated,
purposely look for things.
yeah, and I hated them telling me what I had to read. I think is what it is, and I think
Yeah.
it comes down to the fact that I'm such a moody reader that I was like, no, if you could give me a genre and I could maybe find something in that genre, I'd probably do okay. But I
Yeah.
hated being like, you need to read Wuthering Heights right now, and then we've got to take this apart. And I was like, Wuthering Heights is like sheer torture for me. Like,
Oh,
I
I've done that one as well. Oh man.
remember
I
my English lit teacher and being like, I can read. I can read. You
yep.
can, at this point, can you give me any other book? Like, I couldn't. And then for the life of me, my mom, I remember telling, because I'm obviously a senior in high school when I was doing
Yep.
this. And I remember going to my mom and I was like, have you read this book? She was like, no. I was like, I need something like this. And she laughed. She laughed at me because I was totally that girl in school that had a couple different novels in my backpack, and I would
Yep.
bring it home in class and then like whip out a book.
Yep.
And I think that was like the one book I looked at my mom and I was like, I cannot read this.
I could
And
only
she
read it with the illustrations.
what?
I could only read it with the illustrations. I
My mom ended up getting me the Spark Notes because it was like torturing me and it was putting me in such a mood. She was like, okay.
Yep, yep. No, my hubby, thank goodness, helped me, and I found a illustrated version, and I read it, and I'm so glad I read it before I went into uni, because I already had notes on it. Because if you're a book reviewer, you end up making notes. You can't help yourself.
You
Um,
do.
You do. And, if you ever go on any of my Goodreads, I tend to like put my own personal thoughts first and then I'll share the synopsis of the series or the
Mhm.
the book, whatever. And like I was saved by the fact that I had made so many notes because I could never have read it a second time round. And it was like I was introduced to a Scottish author called Ali Smith this year
Mhm.
and Hotel World. It's literally a book about people that are connected to this hotel, right? And
Okay.
it is the weirdest pro-gay contemporary book you would ever read.
Hmm.
Confused the hell out of me. I'm Scottish. I got all of the little like Scottish nudges that you get. If you read a Scottish author, there is Scottish hints in there. I'm sorry, we cannot write it. Yeah, we can't write it without a Scottish hint.
I mean,
And
I'm American, but I love
yeah,
reading that. Like, I love the Scottish lore or the Irish lore that ties into books. I tend to be pulled towards books like that anyway, just because I think that's why I've always loved, I love Nora Roberts. I've been a
yeah,
long,
I love Nora Roberts too. Yeah,
he's also like one of those feel good authors for me that I've just read forever. And um, she has a lot of Irish books, actually. And
yeah.
then, yeah,
I was
she
actually
takes
thinking
more time, Irish
you would
person.
you'll never hear this author because most Americans I don't know why have never heard of her, but her name's Leslie Pierce.
I've heard
And
Leslie Spears.
you have? You're
I
like the
have.
first person I've sat on this podcast and had a conversation with who knew who Leslie Pierce is. But I gave her a recommendation last night to Sarah about The Gypsy by Leslie Pierce. And
Hmm.
it's stunning. And it really is about this young woman who ends up having to get on a boat to go to America to make a new life. She's orphaned with her brother. And then they decide, they're going to go to the goldfields. And it's their journey there and all the stuff that happens. And she's such a strong woman through the whole thing. Like,
Hmm.
I devoured that book and I was going through a tough time. I was in hospital at the time, but
Hmm.
it got me through the hospital stay because it was just simply such an easy read. I wish
Yeah.
I didn't have the hardback though, because like hardback in hospital, trying to balance it with drips and stuff in was not the
Yeah.
best idea.
That's where
I
your Kindle comes in handy for sure.
Yep, yep. I think it would have been a smart idea, but I ended up reading right through it. It was such a good read, and it
Hmm.
was so you could almost see America back then. It was like she had actually traveled there and she tasted the food and she knew what it smelled like and she just had everything down to a T.
You like reading books? Now I'm asking you a question like I'm an idiot.
No, that's fine.
Do you like reading books like that take place in America essentially, where you can get the atmosphere here?
Yes. And I know that sounds weird because I write American style books, but
Uh-huh.
it's simply because I feel like I grew up in the wrong side of the pond.
Yeah,
Like
I feel that way too.
yeah, like my friends say I'm a secret redneck.
I know that I've always I am always pulled towards like Irish, Scottish kind of books. I just love that film.
Yeah.
So that's why
I
I
was
asked.
I was the weird girl at school because I grew up in a Viking community with Viking culture
Hmm.
and I loved guns, pickup trucks, and horses. So I stood out
I
like
don't.
a real sore thumb. And my mom did everything she could to try and get me to fit in. I went to archery, I went to sports clubs, but I was the kind of girl that wanted to tailgate, ride horses all day, and then, lounge by a nice fire pit drinking beer. That was me. Like, that was just
Yeah.
who I was. And my dad used to joke and say, how is it you're Americanized? Like, when did this happen? And I was like, but Dad, I always loved guns and horses and pickup trucks. You just didn't realize it.
Yeah.
And my partner, he kind of playfully says that I'm a closeted American. Because when we went to LA, like, I could turn my accent off completely, and I have done in the past. And so we're walking around LA, and everyone just assumed I was from Cali Because if you're
Yeah.
really good in Scotland, you can actually mimic the accents of wherever you go. Because in Scotland, everyone's got a different accent at a different place.
Yeah.
So you
Well,
kind of have to
so
learn that, you know?
I think people forget that with America as well, because
Yeah.
California is so, you see more of like the California style of America on movies and stuff like
Yep.
that, but that's not the rest of the United States.
Exactly.
Because I'm born and raised, I was raised in Utah,
Hmm.
and Utahns definitely have a different accent than, other states,
Other
even
states, yeah.
surrounding states just around us. Because I'm down in New Mexico now, and my husband noticed the other day that I picked up on y'all a
Y'all,
lot
yep,
more than I used to say. And because we're by Texas, we go to Texas all the time, so
yeah.
we're right on the Texas New Mexico border, and I say y'all a lot more than I used to from Utah. But Utahns tend to drop their T's.
All right.
So yes, so instead of mountain, it's mountain,
Yep.
or um, with Utah has a weird spelling on how they say their cities. So there's a
I
couple
had
cities.
noticed that actually. I did,
Yes,
yeah.
it's weird. It's weird. So there's a city called Manaway in Utah, but
Yep.
it's spelled Manitoua. And
Yep.
there's a city called Tooele in Utah, and it's spelled Thule. And so, yeah, but growing up, I said my T's,
Yep.
and I got asked all the time where I was from growing up in
Oh,
Utah. And I
yeah.
was like, I'm here. I've lived in the same house since I was 5 years old. Like,
Yep.
I'm from
No,
here.
I had the same problem. I spent like half my time in a city called Aberdeen, and then I
Mhm.
spent the other half of the time in Shetland. And they too do speak completely different. They have different dialects, they have different words.
Yeah.
And it would be like I would go down there for a day and then I would start talking like I was from Aberdeen. And then I'd have to go back to Shetland and I'd have to talk Shetland to my Shetland friends.
Yeah.
And it was such a nightmare because in Shetland everything's I and Duquesne. So
Hmm.
like you had to put that at every sentence. So when I moved to Glasgow, oh, my partner was gonna like strangle me because every time I was hanging out with his family, I would say Duquesne, Duquesne, and he was like, "We don't say that down here." You know, it's like it drove him crazy. Or like everything was I, like you would just say I, which meant yes
Yeah.
to to everything, and yeah, it drove him crazy. It took me so long to drop all that, and like we didn't say our T's either, so everything was like butter or water or was it if you were saying going, it was I've ging, I'm ginging.
Yeah.
So it was like all these different words, and I took so long to kind of like just get rid of it. And then because we lived in the East End for a while, I started picking up a lot of East End slang. So I was like just throwing it out randomly at you and be like, "That's not what that's for," and you said that wrong, and don't ever say that again. And because it was just such a crazy different experience.
Yeah. I love listening to the different um, dialects that people have when they talk, though. I think it's really fun. And
I love
that's
it
one thing
too.
about booking
Yeah.
is being able to talk to people not just from Utah or not just from New Mexico where I'm at, but talking to people all over the world. And I've become really good friends with a girl in Germany, and we'll do a video chat with another friend that's up in Canada. So like I'm in America, she's in Germany, she's in Canada, and we do a video chat the three of us, every couple months. And I just love that, like, I don't know, Bookstrgam brought together more of the world for me.
Yeah, and I think during the pandemic that was like really the case because it was a case of just this whole other world had opened up and we
Yeah.
were all at home. Like, I mean, lockdown was for everybody at one point or another. So,
Yeah.
and I was high risk. So when they realized I was high risk, I just got like told stay at home, and I was like, what am I gonna do with myself? I read a
Yeah.
lot last year. And it was good because it was almost like I had that escape. I could go on Bookstagram, I could see like your feed and other people's feed, and it kept my spirits up a lot. And especially like I was really ill at certain points of it, and it was that one place I could go and go like, oh yeah, I'm really enjoying this. This is fun. So, which is the darkest book that you've read this year so far, and what's the book you've loved the most this year?
Um, Darkest as far as like dark romance or like dark elements to the book.
You could have it like you could do dark elements or dark romance. It's your pick.
I don't read a ton of dark romance, but I did read. I tried to read Hooked.
All
Dark
right.
romance. I just don't think dark romance is really like my thing because I had a lot of friends that were loving it,
Yeah.
and so I was like, "Oh, I'll give it a shot." But as far as like dark elements,
It's a
I've
tough
looked.
question when you read a lot
It
and
is.
you have to review stuff. Yeah.
I've already read 47 books this year, so I'm like, what is
Wow,
happening?
you're way ahead of me.
I listen to a lot of audiobooks.
Yeah.
Um, I would actually probably say the Black Witch Chronicles.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
Not dark in the sense of like dark in the sense that while it's a fantasy book, it was actually some of the concepts and things that were happening are very relatable.
Yeah.
Um, you know, the have you read the Black Witch Chronicles?
No, I haven't. It is on my TBR.
It's an incredible series. In fact, I have not been in the best frame of mind to finish Demon Tide. I want to, and it's there, and I own it. It's actually my fingers right
Yep.
on it right now. But I know it's really heavy. I guess
Yeah.
heavy is a better way to explain these books.
Yeah.
It's a lot of like, in a way, there's ways that can relate to this, what's going on in the world today.
Yeah.
While it's a fantasy book, you know, the Gardnerians, essentially in the Black Witch, are kind of this fanatical society, like religiously, and just that they think they're a little bit superior to other races,
Yeah.
and you know that's happening now. You have
Mm-hmm.
fanatical religions, and you have fanatical um, cultures that think they're better than everybody else instead of just letting everybody be individuals.
Yeah.
Um,
It's crazy how bad that is right now. Yeah.
yeah, so I was reading, in fact, I think it was, I can't remember if it was Iron Flower or Shadow Wand, either book two or book three. And I ended up messaging Jen, Bound Hobbies, I think it was Jen that I messaged. And
Yeah.
I was like, I just want to cry. I just want to cry for like
Mm-hmm.
people that have experienced this, you know.
Yeah.
Whether it's you're being judged by the color of your skin or the culture you were raised in. I grew up being from Utah. I was
Yeah.
not the typical religion that is Utah, and I
Yeah.
felt that.
I know about the Mormons. They're a thing here too. So yeah.
So I'm not Mormon, and
Mm-hmm.
there was a lot of prejudice against me because I have tattoos and
Yep.
things like that, and I could relate in that sense. But then also
Mm-hmm.
there was things in this book that was happening that like. So I'm actually Native American. My dad is Native American, but I'm very
Oh,
white
cool.
passing.
Yeah.
Most people don't guess that I am Native when they look at me because I'm so fair. But
Funnily enough, that's not how I tell. It's usually by the bone structure. Because, like, see here in Scotland, there's a lot of people that are, have Indian blood in them, like, from the country India. And
mhm,
you can tell by their bone structure. So I
yes,
actually learned really early on, like, how to tell where somebody was from by, like, the contours of their faces and stuff.
I get told it once they know that about me, they'll mention my cheekbones or like the
Yeah, I
indicator.
did notice that, and I was like, I wonder if she is. And I thought, no, I'm not gonna guess in case I get it really wrong. Because Ian said to me, like, the other day, like, you need to stop trying to guess where people are from because you get it so wrong. And I'm like, it's mostly accents. I try and guess accents, and I get the accents wrong, but I get the faces right.
I get a lot of accents wrong, so a lot of times like I'll just open the conversation of like, "Hey, where are you from?"
Yep,
Not to be like
me too.
rude or like anything like that, but just because I'm such a curious person by nature too that I want to learn. Like that
Yeah,
was one of the most exciting things for me moving out of Utah because Utah is kind of it's very much like a bubbled state.
yeah,
It
I
does.
heard that. I did hear that a lot. Yeah,
I there is a lot of good to Utah, and there's a lot of just like everywhere, there's the good and the bad.
Yeah.
I think Utah is a very, very beautiful state, landscape-wise. It's a very
Yeah,
beautiful
it
state.
is. It is.
But I actually was really glad to move my children out of Utah and let them experience more diverse cultures in other places because I
And
wanted,
experience the world too. Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, I want them to see more of the world because then it also helps them be more understanding of people. I
And
grew up,
rounded. Yeah.
yeah, like I didn't have a lot of diversity in the schools that I went to growing up, but my grandparents lived up on the reservation. So
All
like
right.
summertime, I would go
Yeah.
up on the reservation and I would see how different the world was, in the reservation versus where I was growing up in, a white suburban neighborhood.
Yeah.
And I feel like in a way that helped me have
Hmm.
more empathy and acceptance of people being different. And um, sorry, yeah,
It's okay. But no,
my
I get what you're saying. Yeah, it's crazy because as I said, I grew up in this tiny little island where, I didn't realize how xenophobic it was till like I sort of looked around me and I was like, oh my gosh, we're so xenophobic. We get so scared about new people coming in and stuff like that. I learned that there was like a huge wide world out there, and almost the minute that I realized there was a big world out there and I understood everybody, and I have like this really high level for empathy and sympathy. um it was like I got itchy feet and I wanted to go everywhere and I wanted to see everything, but then there was
love
this little part of me that was scared to go because I had lived on this same island my entire life. My
that.
family was all from there. So like when I went to Los Angeles, I have lots of friends in LA. I was like, I jumped at every noise because it was a completely different, like
And
the
it's
city
loud.
sounded different, and everybody like drove with their horns. Like I don't know how deaf I was within the first, what was it, 4 hours we were there because everyone was leaning on their horns, and I'm like,
Oh, yeah,
oh
California.
wow, that's loud. And then we stayed in a hotel that was right by the freeway, and then there was cars that would backfire, and I would just jump out of my skin because I was thinking gunshots, and then of course my first night there, me and my hubby had just gone to bed, and there was an earthquake. Now,
Yeah,
growing
that's
up in Scotland, we don't get many of those. In fact, we get none of those. So I'm like, oh my god, the ceiling is going to come in, or you know what I mean? Like you just have this end of the world kind of feeling, and if you're a reader, you definitely have it. So I'm like braced in the bathroom doorway, going, oh, and my hubby just literally said, I'm going back to sleep, and he rolled over my bed to sleep, and I'm the only one that was sitting at the doorway like an idiot, just thinking, oh, this is terrible. We even saw our first forest fire when we were over there, which was crazy, because we don't
yeah.
get forest fires here very, very often. They're so rare. So
So
that
what's
was a,
funny is people don't realize that. So the western part of the Americas is desert. It's high
yeah.
desert. Even California and Utah, they're
Mm-hmm.
considered desert states. And we
Yep.
get a lot of fires. Like Utah gets really bad fires, just like California. And yeah, I don't know how New
It was
Mexico.
eye opening for me for sure, because I'm like, wow, there's like, we're driving back from the zoo. It's our last day there, and we had a heat wave the entire time we were there. And I just looked over at Ian, and we literally maybe got in the door like 5 minutes, and I turned on the TV, and it was instantly on the news channel because if you're in LA, you have to know the traffic because you
You
can't
do.
go anywhere. It's so bad. And so I had the traffic channel on for the news, and it came up forest fire at the zoo, LA Zoo. And I was like, how crazy is that? We left literally just as it was starting, and we had seen the fire trucks go by, but we hadn't thought anything of it because, we're
It's
from the
California.
UK. Yeah.
Yeah.
So we'd gone back to the hotel, and it was so crazy. And I'm like, I hope that doesn't go like out of control and we don't get out of LAX tomorrow. Because I was fearing like the big like clouds of smoke and something, or not being able to fly home. And I'm like, oh no. But it was such a good experience. My husband didn't enjoy it, but I loved every minute of it. I
Mhm.
would move to America in a heartbeat if I could afford it, but with my arthritis, probably not. But yeah, I totally, totally loved it, and I would recommend, like, I want to take my kids everywhere once I get the opportunity.
Yeah,
So,
that's like one of our goals is to travel more with our children.
yeah, and I think it's good for every kid to travel. Like, I did a lot of
Mhm.
teaching and stuff, and it's so important for kids to travel and experience the world. So,
It
which
is.
is the most hyped up book that you've ever reviewed?
Like it just didn't resonate with me, but I
Yeah,
see it all.
like if you'd seen it a lot and then you read it and then you were like, "Oh, I need to review this now," and I'm just not really sure how to.
Probably the Bargainer series, actually. It's just not. I read the first Rhapsodic, I think is book one. I read it. It wasn't for me, and I didn't leave a bad review, but I did comment as a
Hmm.
review that I wish I would have known the trigger warnings going into that book because there was no
Yeah,
trigger warnings before. And I'm a big advocate for trigger warnings on books. I think they're
so am
important.
I. Yeah.
Um, and that book actually had some big triggers for people, and
Hmm.
I read it, and it wasn't like a horrible book, but it just wasn't for me. I think that
No.
one's and I that one gets recommended actually a lot on because I do love paranormal romance and it
Yeah.
falls in that normal genre. So like when I ask, questions on my Bookstrgam and stuff, I do see that it gets mentioned a lot, and a lot of times for me, when a book is not for me, I just don't interact with the book. If that
Yeah.
makes sense, like I won't encourage the recommendation or whatever. Versus if it's something that I've read, I'll be like, oh my gosh, I loved it.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I had
but it
that
really,
experience with Christine Freeman's one. I can't remember if it was book 2 or book 3 in her vampire series, the Companion series.
yeah, they're very
That
wordy books.
Yeah, and she like there was no trigger warnings on it at all. And I picked it up and then I read it and it was like I'd gone through some really horrendous stuff and I was just like triggered so bad with that. And I thought,
Yeah,
"Oh my God, like what have I just read?" And it totally traumatized me. I couldn't read another book for I think it was 3 or 4 days. I didn't read
so
anything.
I think too the thing with trigger warnings is when going like if you have a whatever particular trigger it is
Yeah,
in your life, going into that book doesn't necessarily mean like for me it doesn't necessarily mean I won't read it, but
no.
at least going into it I'm mentally prepared for it.
Yeah, you're mentally prepared and you kind of go into it saying, okay, this is a book I need to be careful of. Like I would have liked the trigger warning for the
Mhm.
Diana Gilberton series, the Outlander series. The
That is also one
first,
of those
yeah,
overhyped.
the it was, and I felt bad because I ended up having a conversation with her on Twitter,
Hmm.
and it was like everyone was going on about how good her Scottish was, and I'm like, no, it's not. You've got the wrong dialect in the wrong area. And she's going on about how she's got all these people from Scotland that's on her team and stuff. And I'm like, I don't care if you're writing in a set area, but you're using the dialect from a different area. I said
Yeah,
it's very subtle differences, and unless you've lived in that area, you can't get it. You can't get it right. And
right.
it's one of the reasons that when I did the Carla series, I only wrote it in Shetland because I know how Shetlanders
Mhm.
are.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like, and I do recommend that one for you if you ever get a chance to read it. This the
Okay.
Carlo one because it's really good. So I'm told. But like it's got like that real true to the place Scottishness, and there's like so many people that I go into wards with, or I'm in like the day wards with for treatment for my arthritis, and they will be like, "Oh my God, they got the Scottish wrong." Or you get an Irish person who will suddenly just throw a book across the room because they're so screwing up the Irish, like
Yeah.
words or their little trick, like, or it'll be just like things that are well known about them, but it's wrong. I've,
Things we kind of
yeah,
have to give authors some grace. And
yeah.
like I actually hate when people tear apart. They see like a typo in a book.
Oh gosh,
They
that
tear
drives
the
me
book
nuts.
apart over a typo, and I'm
Yep.
like, but overall, did you enjoy the story? Like, isn't
Yeah.
that the important part? Like, so there wasn't a comma or a word was misspelled. Like, skip it, move on, and did you
Yeah.
enjoy the story?
I
I don't
mean,
know.
I've had to dodge a lot of books over the years. Then being in a, like I lent a friend a book, she was in with me and she was Indian and I just didn't click that this was an Indian book.
Hmm.
And the next thing I see is it's flying by the side of my face. Cause like she was so mad at the way that it had been written. It flew by my head and I'm like, okay, I'll take that one and you can have the fantasy one. And then she read the fantasy and she was fine, but it was just like that instant, it was so wrong that she just flipped. So yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when it comes to like your inspiration for your Instagram videos, what really got you into it? And what does your partner think about your collection of videos and books?
I think so. I like to do reels that kind of resonate with me, or that I really like to lip sync to songs mostly because I have a hard time. Well, I think I have a hard time like being really creative with reels. I mean, sometimes things just spark in my head, but I think it's at the end of the day, it has to just like resonate with me or like how I feel about a book, or I don't know. A lot of mine are just like songs that I lip synced to because it made me think of a book or something.
I do that too. Like I'll be randomly reading something and then I'll hear a song and I'll be like, "Oh, that is so the song to that book."
Yeah.
And I end up just like I can't think of anything else while that song is playing except for that book. It's like
Right.
ah, but it's
As far
fun.
as far as my husband, I had one reel. I've had a couple reels go viral, but
Yeah.
one reel had over 100,000 views, and
Wow.
I ended up having a panic attack about it. Actually,
Oh,
um,
really?
yes, because there is something that's kind of scary in a way
Mm-hmm.
about that many people seeing your face,
Yeah.
and so I think that's kind of what had sent me like, oh my gosh, because if I could have a superpower, I would be invisible. To be honest, like
Mm-hmm.
I don't crave the attention.
No.
I'm very introverted. I'm good being like I'm talking to people one on one or
Yeah.
small group settings, but I get really bad social anxiety in big group settings, and so then I
Same. Yep.
I was telling my husband I was like, this is a lot of people that have seen my face, and I'm like hyperventilating about it. But overall, my husband is he's such a good support, and um, as far as my Bookstrgam, I think each person runs their Bookstrgrams differently. It's whatever works for
Yep.
them. But my Bookstrgram is not my main life. I have fun on Bookstrgram and I want to
Mm.
keep it fun, but it's not my biggest priority. I'm a mom
No.
and obviously
Yeah.
my children are my biggest priority. So for me, like the way I run my Bookstrgram is I batch photos and I batch reels. Like I'll pick a day where I don't have anything going and I'll,
Just do a
film
whole
several.
pile. Yeah.
Yeah, that's why if you see my reels, you'll notice those like a row of pictures that where I'm dressed all the same or my hair is styled the same. And
Yeah.
then like the next little set of pictures or reels are the same. Um, and then same thing, I batch pictures. And I actually did a reel the other day telling people how I not cheated my way through Bookstagram, but kind of cheated my way through Bookstagram in the sense that like I will take a picture when I'm batching photos for that month because I do it a month
Yeah.
in advance. Um, when I'm taking a picture for the month, I actually take a picture of blank of my Kindle so that I
All
can
right.
crop covers onto my blank Kindle.
Oh.
Um, so it's not like so if I get a new book or I read something else that maybe my mood set like because I'm a moody reader that
Yeah.
maybe I didn't take a picture of before, I can put that cover on my Kindle or whatever it is to
Yeah, it's easier that way.
I
Yeah.
later do a review on it on my page.
Yeah.
So.
That's actually good to know because I think a lot of people think, oh, you have to like slot out a set time every day to do stuff. Like I'm terrible for my Instagram because I don't post every day. And I had a long period of time where I didn't post at all because I was ill. But I like if I'm reading something and I'll be like, okay, I'll just like click something, or if I'm like crafting because that's my chill out thing. then I'll like snap a picture or something like that, just so it's different, so that they're like it's not all books all the time, or it's not all book boxes all the time. Like that's what I do, and my Instagram's more fun for me
Yeah.
because the books is like, like the books is a professional thing I have to do, but then like I just like to have the fun. And that's what I'm doing. Like I don't have like an Instagram for my podcast, because my podcast is going to be like my life essentially. So that's why I'm tying it to my actual Instagram, and it's going to be that kind of fun where I'm going to maybe post, like when it starts coming out, I'm going to post like a picture for every guest as they come out, but I'm going to do that in a batch. So like all of May I'll just do a batch, and then all of June I'll have a batch, and I'll just take one day and I'll just do it. And it's so much easier that way. Like that's how I used to run my Twitter, was I would write all the tweets for the month, and then if I had like a different thought on that day, I could send out the tweet like I did, just off my phone. And that was a godsend. But see, when that all those platforms to help you like pre-plan your social media started failing, oh, it was awful for me. Awful.
I post whatever resonates that day. On my Bookstrgam, I go quiet a lot of weekends, or quieter on weekends, because my family's home.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Summertime, I'm also quieter than I am during the year, because like I am a stay-at-home mom, and so between cleaning and doing things around the house, I could pop a picture on Instagram, or tell a funny story like I did this morning about my audiobook starting while I was in the Starbucks line.
Yeah.
But
I think that's all happened to us at some point. Or like I had it do it to me. I was sitting, I thought my headphones were connected to my computer.
Yeah.
And it was just happened to be a very kind of steamy scene started playing, and then I freaked out and I was trying to like turn it off, and
panicking over pushing buttons again.
Yep, and it did not work. And the nurse was like, "So, what are you listening to?" And I'm like, "Oh."
I used to get super embarrassed over my love of smut, and now at this point in my life, like my book started at Starbucks this morning, and I'm currently listening to Electric Idol by Katie Robert, and Katie Robert writes, some spicy scenes.
Spicy
and it was
stuff, yeah.
Mid-detail, and the girls on the speaker started to laugh, and I was like, well, my book started, so hold on 1 second. Like,
yep.
At this point, I've just kind of accepted that and I've gotten a lot of messages where people have told me, like, I inspired them to just accept that it's okay to read whatever makes them happy.
It is okay. I write it, so why should I be embarrassed about listening to it? I mean,
It's not like I'm 12 reading, teach their own, but I'm not a 12-year-old girl reading, a super erotic novel. I'm a grown woman, and if that's what makes me happy, then that's what makes me happy.
Well, that's what I say, because like I tell my family, don't read it, because if you don't like smut, you're not gonna like it, and I'm very open and honest with them about that, and that's why a lot of them don't touch my stuff. But like when I did Summer of Him, I was almost got like free reign to just go crazy with it. Mm-hmm. And I loved it because it's an erotic author at an erotic romance convention falling in love with a guy that wrestles in his underpants. How is that not going to be spicy?
I'm here for it. Sounds like I need to write.
And that's what I was saying to people. I'm like, it's not like I go out of my way to write smut. Sometimes the story just calls for it, and you just got to go with the flow.
So I did get a couple messages, because I was encouraging people to read, whatever makes them happy.
Yep.
And I got told that I was evil and I was going to hell for encouraging people to read these books.
I just laugh at that. I'm sorry. Like, I've gotten to that age in my life where I'm like, dude, if this is what you could do with your spare time, then good on you, but you're not going to shame me into this.
Well, that's why I was venting about it to one of my friends on Bookstrgam. His name is Lewis, and he's like, that's it. You are now the evil smut queen of Instagram. Like, that's just going to be your name.
That's so going to stick as well.
You know what? I like it. Like, if I'm the evil smut queen, which is funny because I don't even think I have some friends that they're really into the dark romance and stuff like that, and I love it for them.
Yep.
But I just think it's funny that they came at me because I love my spicy Lorelei James books. Like they're
Yep.
some of my absolute favorite reads. And whenever I'm in a book funk, that is who I pick up. I always pick up one of Lorelei James's book, whether
Yep.
it's her Rough Rider series, which is Cowboy series. You talked about Western and trucks
Yep.
and stuff. Have you read Lorelei James yet?
I am going to. She's on my list. I'm actually going to try Gunslinger. Somebody actually gave me that the other day. And I'm
Okay.
like, I'm holding my breath because I want it to be really, really good, but then I'm like kind of scared it's not going to be because I've been reading Diane Palmer,
Uh-huh.
who did the Cowboy series. And I love her cowboys because they're bad,
Yeah.
but they're so good at the same time.
Lorelei James's Cowboys. So I actually grew up on the border of Wyoming,
Oh,
and
right.
her Cowboy series takes place in Wyoming, and
Uh-huh.
I get it. Like it's very relatable. It is what it is. And
Yep.
my husband, I'm pretty sure that's how my second daughter came to be was because of Lorelei James.
I would agree that that's a good possibility considering, her reputation and everything. Yes. I mean, I just love it.
Books I got called like evil, and then we ran with the evil smut queen, and my
Someone's
friend
so
Nick.
gonna send you a crown now with like a note saying to the evil smut queen.
Yeah, well, so my friend Nick, he's an artist, and I
Yeah.
helped. Like he ran a competition to help pick like his new Instagram handle or whatever, and I helped him pick it. Goody Reads as his Instagram,
Yeah.
and so I won an art piece from Nick, and he's like, "What are we gonna do?" He's like, "Maybe we should do your because we're friends," and he's like, "Maybe
Yeah.
we should do your book boyfriend. So which one do you want?" And he stopped for a second. He was like, "Evil smut queen. Let's do them all." And he drew me an art piece. It's on my Instagram if you like
Yep.
scroll down. And I made a reel about it actually. He drew me on a throne as the evil smut queen in this green dress with my tattoos out. And then you've read ACOTAR, so
Hmm.
you know the scene where Reese is sitting on the arm of the chair and Feyre's on the throne.
Yep.
So Nick drew my husband sitting on the arm of the throne with me
Yeah.
and all my book friends around me. But
Oh, that's so cool.
Lorelei James, a couple of her characters made it on there. Rage is on there.
Yep.
Um, Axe from J.R. Ward is also on there. Let's see, who else? Asriel, Rowan.
Your
Who else?
kingdom of book boyfriends.
Yes, and it's my favorite. Like I love it. I'm obsessed with it. So I just kind of joke like evil smut queen. I'll take that. And then Nick
It's good.
made
It's
the
good to have it like a nickname because I get Spitfire whenever I'm around the wrestlers. I'm Spitfire because I usually, if they get me going, I don't stop, and
yeah.
I'm a bit like a dog with a bone sometimes with them. So they always laugh and joke and say, "Oh no, here comes Spitfire. Let's just like pretend she's not here and she might go away." So like, and it's only because usually if I'm around, something funny really happens to them. So like they're kind of like oddly aware, but they didn't actually know at the time, my last time I was hanging out with them, they didn't know about my crazy fans, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I'm sort of sitting around having a laugh and a joke with them, and one of my readers comes running up to me, and she'd read all my books, and she had won these prizes, and they were kind of embarrassing prizes for adults, and like
Which are
she,
the
yeah, let's go with that. And so she drops them on the table, and she's like, "Sign them, sign them, sign them." So I signed them, like being like the good author person, I signed them. And then I could see my friend's face across the table, and he was so, so embarrassed. I literally picked it up and said, "Right, your turn." And I threw it into his lap. And it was like, you would have thought it had cooties or something. He kind of like just picked it up, like really gingerly. He set it on the table. He picked up the pen, just like, just as,
touch this.
yeah, like I need gloves for this kind of thing. And then he signed it. And of course, our other friend, he's dying. He's trying so hard not to laugh out loud because like they all knew that my stuff got spicy. And then He just like picks it up by the corner and throws it into my other friend's lap, and he just the scowl that came on his face was so funny. So he did the same thing, picked it up like he was gonna get goodies, and he signed it. And she ran away. She thought it was the best experience ever. And they turned to me and they went, right, we need vodka to cleanse our souls from your contamination. I was like, gee, thanks. So I had to go up to the bar and get Red Bulls and vodkas all round. She must have walked away with like 15 signatures that night from like all my friends because we were all at one table. So yeah.
Like when fandoms come up with nicknames for authors too, like the Zodiac Academy books, the Carolyn Peckham and Susan Valenti, they're sisters, and so the nickname out is like the Twisted Sisters, and I love the nicknames for authors, and like McQueen for Sherilyn Kenyon, and
I just wish I hadn't got named after a plane though. That's my only thing.
Spitfire is a plane?
Yeah, it's a plane. It's a World War II plane.
Oh, I didn't know that.
I don't know. Was that a British plane or the Spitfire? Yeah, it was a British plane. I was checking because my history's not that great. My partner is just literally face planted his face with his hand because he's like, "Oh my gosh, Crystal, that's like you should know that."
my husband knows more about history than I do, so I check in with him too.
I check in with because I think I know history, and then I'll say something, and he will look at me as if to say that's the stupidest thing you've ever said.
Yeah.
And I'll be like, "Oops." Like I get the Cold War wrong all the time, and he has to correct me, and I don't know tanks, and I don't know planes. So.
I have to check in with my husband. Like, wait, what was this one?
Yeah. I'm terrible. So but there's quite a few moments that Ian will go, "Really? Did you just say that?" And I have to like I get that awkwardness of I think so.
Yeah.
So are you when you like decompress and you're just having fun, are you a crafter or do you like have another hobby that you do to just kind of like chill out and relax?
Honestly, like reading is probably my biggest hobby.
Yeah.
I'm also taking up like painting edges of my books.
All right.
I've made Funko Pops for some of my book characters. That's kind of been a little thing. Back in Utah, I liked to hike.
Cool.
I don't live in the mountains anymore, so there's not really hiking close by me here. But my family we like to be outside quite a bit, and so we're outside playing. And my husband and I coach what we can for our kids, like their teams and stuff. So like right now it's softball season, so when I'm not reading, I'm basically coaching softball.
Yeah. No, that's understandable. Yeah. For me, it's like I do cross stitch because it's like the easiest thing for me to like chill, and I can totally like get away with it.
My mom cross stitched beautiful. In fact, this is like my wedding sampler right here behind my head.
Oh, that is so cute. Yeah. I'm a sucker though because like I grew up with my grandmother was a professional knitter from the age of 8. So, like, it was like, you are going to be ladylike, and you're going to have all these ladylike things implanted in your brain, whether you want them or not. And she really was like that with me. She's like, I was a wild child. I was really spirited and wild, and she was, like, determined that I was going to be able to sit and have a cup of tea without spilling it, and I could pour tea for people, and I would have all these, like, great abilities that you would expect of a lady, and yeah, so she really instilled that in me. So like embroidery was one of the things that I had to just you mastered or you just got shouted at, really. So
teach me to cross stitch and to sew, but it just wasn't
for you.
It wasn't a thing. I'm not super athletic. Like I would not consider myself an athletic person at all. But there was a few sports that I enjoyed growing up. So I played tennis growing up, and I played softball. I like to hike. Yeah, that's kind of the extent of my sportiness right there. But
so here's the question that I ask everyone that kind of throws them. Where's your favorite place to cuddle up and read? Is it like a garden? Do you have like we here in Scotland, because it rains so much, we have conservatories because it's
Hmm.
like the only place you can sit outside but not get wet.
Hmm.
So that's our favorite places to sit and read. So is yours like a garden or fire pit or
I'd like to curl up in my bed a lot and read, or if
yeah.
I'm not in my bed, I actually like to take a chair out front. I have like a little lounge chair that I sit in my front yard, and my kids will be riding their bikes or rollerblading or playing outside, and I
Yeah.
actually just sit on my front lawn and watch them play. There's something about the sound of them playing also while I'm reading. I enjoy that. I
Yeah.
love the sound of children's laughter. So I would just say my front lawn while my kids are being kids.
Well, we've come to the fun part of the show where we're going to do the word association game.
Okay.
So this is this. So don't freak out about this because I just like put words out there, and if you want to tie them to books or if you just say the first thing that comes to your mind, that's cool. That's just generally how we do this. So my first one is fresh whipped cream.
Angel food cake.
That is an interesting one. Mincemeat pies.
I've never had one.
You've never had a mincemeat? Oh yeah, I suppose they're not really big in America, are they? Fries.
Are we talking chips or fries? What are
Fries
they
as
in?
in like, yeah, they would be
The,
chips for you, and like, yeah. So it'd be like,
um, so if it's chips for me, I am not. I'm more of a sweet versus savory. I don't eat a lot
ah.
of chips.
So you, okay, the next one is toffee. Like, the first melted toffee syrup stuff that you get on cakes sometimes.
Symphony candy bar, milk chocolate, toffee in it.
Okay, let's see. Chocolate.
Love it. I'd add it straight up chocolate. Add it. Actually,
I,
because
I have those moments too as well. Um, and it's bun cakes was the other one.
what is a bun cake?
A bun cake is like, it looks like a roll, like a bread roll, but instead
Okay.
it's got like fresh whipped cream in the middle and then it's got sticky white icing on the outside.
I don't think I've ever had that either.
They're amazing. You need to come to Scotland and try all of our delicacies. We have so many cakes. Everything is like fresh cream and custard in it. It's ridiculous.
I will. Yeah, I will definitely try that if I come when I come to when
Well,
I come to Scotland. It's
yeah,
definitely
when. But you can actually get a lot of the Scottish bakery stuff online. So like you
okay.
can actually like if you put it into YouTube, it'll tell you like how to make mincemeat pies and how to make fruit cake and all these like really good things. But I will warn you, if you eat them, they're like really filling. I think
Hmm.
people don't realize how filling they are. Then they're like, whoa,
When I
you
think
know.
of a mincemeat pie, I almost think of like a chicken pot pie.
It kind of is like that. You've got a sweet pastry, and then it's like dried fruit, and it's like done in like sugar and butter. So you like mix all that, yeah, and it's like it's so sweet, but it's like really good at the same time. And there's no mince in it, right? It's a deceiving name, but yeah, no, it's a really good one. You should look it up sometime. There's hundreds of recipes, but if you look it up sometime, you can actually get they send mincemeat to the States quite a lot, and you can get it in like the world food stores. I don't know if you know. I know them in LA, but I don't know if what they're called elsewhere. Um,
I have some in Utah. I don't know where some is close to me now, but I can
yeah,
find it.
yeah, and they're really good because they have lots of like Scottish delicacies and stuff like that. You would really like haggis. There's quite a fiery kick to that.
I've heard of haggis. I've never had haggis.
Yeah, you could make that in the oven, and it's really good. But just don't read what it's made of.
Okay.
I always say that if you like something that's Scottish, don't read how it's made. So that's our time, guys. It's been a lot of fun being on with our book influencer Kay, and I highly recommend you guys check her out on Instagram. You can easily find her through this podcast. I will have her links up, and let's all meet next week to hear what Shirley Cannon has to say about her new book. I'll have all the inside scoop. So, have a good one, guys, and I'll speak to you soon.
Thank you.